Good evening, race fans, and welcome back to TRTN for tonight's coverage of Season 6, Round 6 of the NLRL Sunday League powered by TRTN. As always, I am Regan Clark, and you join us here into the second half of the championship proper here on Season 6, as you join us from the northeasternmost community in Spain, the autonomous community of Catalonia, here at the Circuit de Barcelona, Catalunya. Founded in 1989 and opened its doors for the first time in 1991, its 16 turns and just over 2.9 miles of FIA Grade 1 forms one of four vital circuits in the backbone of testing infrastructure in Formula 1, alongside Imola, Silverstone and Fiorano. Outside of Grand Prix racing on four wheels, it sees Grand Prix racing on two wheels as the Catalan Grand Prix in MotoGP. In endurance racing, it sees racing from the European Le Mans Series and 24-Hour Series, and also sees recent introductions from GT World Challenge Europe from 2017 onwards, TCI Europe from 2018 onwards, and recently this year, Ferrari Challenge's Finale Mondiale round. In its former time as a Grand Prix destination, it was the Spanish Grand Prix until 2025. It continues its legacy now as the Barcelona Catalunya Grand Prix, with the Spanish Grand Prix going to Madrid for 2026 onwards, and it also saw, for 7 years between 2015 and 2022, the home of the FIA World Rallycross Championships World Rallycross of Catalunya. Outside of motorsports in its entirety, it was the home of the 1992 Summer Olympics, and today will be home of Round 6 of Season 6 of the NLRL Sunday League, reeling away from what was an odd last couple of weeks in the Nordschleife and Donington that saw two inadverted back-to-back endurance races, one of which ending under red flags in the Nordschleife at Round 4. Donington gave us another set of bizarre circumstances, which has now been formally classified by race control as an accidental endurance race, and the points were distributed accordingly. Heading into the second half of the season, then, we should be closer on schedule, with a sprint race coming up today here in Barcelona. Following on thereafter at Round 7, we head to Imola, then Bathurst for the next endurance race coming up on Round 8, then back to the standard format at Red Bull Ring for Round 9. We'll end the season on another sprint format over at the Autodromo Nazionale di Monza. Reeling away from exciting action in the last 2 weeks, saw in Donington, of all places, a brand new winner and the first ever driver to take a victory with Ferrari. Jared Vermeulen wowed expectations by becoming the first overall rookies win of the season, and became the first ever driver to win for Ferrari, now adding Ferrari as the 9th manufacturer to have ever taken a race win here on the NLRL Sunday League. Overall, he becomes the 18th, I believe, or 19th, I believe, driver to have taken a victory in the NLRL Sunday League, taking a look in towards that previous wad of wins after 64 races of the NLRL Sunday League. A brand new name into the mixture here for Season 6, which now adds to an ongoing tally of drivers taking overall race wins. Of course, we've seen Carlos Diesch on multiple occasions, as well as Tyler Vermaak, Alan Alexander, and Cas van Velzen. Taking a look into the ballast for tonight's event does find us with a little bit more of a comprehensive look at things, away from the line chart, now onto more standard graphing, as we see still heaviest among the fray will be Carlos Diesch, 20 kilos heavier. The next following on with him there will be Cas van Velzen, now 9 kilos heavier. Neutral weight after the last round just gone there for that of Alan Alexander, Ian Skeen, Fake Galaxy and Gabriel Lavuga, but we do see weight gains coming up there for Jared Vermeulen after his victory in Donington, as well as therefore Patrick Leger, Tyler Vermaak and Zolt Beefgarner, as well as George Todd and Elias De Vos. Taking a look away from the ballast and in towards the championship standings before we talk about the regs for today, starting things off then with the Rookies Championship, to find De Vos now back into the lead after the sudden withdrawal of Gabriel Lavuga of ISR Motorsports. Nonetheless, it leaves De Vos in the lead with Ferrari, but close on his tail there and closing in fast, 115.5 points to that of Jared Vermeulen, reeling from his victories in Donington Park. He's ahead of Richard Claffey in 3rd, Patrick Leger in 4th, and Joseph Reyes in 5th. Nick Lamming makes 6th place ahead of Konstantinos Chitos in 7th, Paul Vidler in 8th, Vladimir Malarax in 9th, and Vinicius Goyce rounds out the top 10. In the Teams Championship, it's rather predictable here for Euro Titans, continuing to storm away with competition after round 5 of the championship. Last season's Teams champions looking to go double on the trot here in the Teams Championship standings, nearly triple the points haul of 5-Star Esports in 2nd. Malwar Racing maintain a podium ahead of TSRC, who now climb ahead of CRT Racing to 4th, with CRT rounding out the top 5. Hispania in 6th, with Team VGN in 7th. Kafrovic now 8th place ahead of Apex Online Racing Pro in 9th. VEC Esports, I should say, there joins the top 10. Before we get into the overall drivers' standings, having a look at the regulations for today to find us back on the sprint format. You join us in the midst of 10 minutes of free practice today. Coming up around the corner is 20 minutes of qualifying that will dictate the grid for 3 different grids. 3 different races, I should say. Race 1, 2, and 3, all of which 20 minutes in succession there, all of which feature a single mandatory pit stop on open strategy, a minimum 3.2 seconds worth of a fuel stop. So super quick stops here in Barcelona coming up just around the corner. Looking back onto the track then to catch on board with our drivers at the moment, we see here with Carlos Dish, who does find himself now at the head of the field in the driver standings. He's with 225 points, 20 points in the lead over Tyler Vermaak in second. Cas van Velzen, as it stands to be the case, 38 points behind the race lead, or the championship lead, I should say. They're third place ahead of Alan Alexander in fourth. Ian Skeen rounds out the top five by 30 points away. George Todd only 8 points off of him there in sixth place ahead of Fate Galaxy by 14 points. Fate Galaxy with 116 points of the championship makes 7th ahead of Zolt Beefgartner in 8th with 107 points. Richard Claffey in 9th place with 95 points. Elias de Vos rounds out the top 10 with 88 points. Following on board at the moment with Carlos Dish, we've been seeing here the run down through turn 4 into turn 5 from Repsol to Seat, but having a look at the timing chart so far reveals Brooklyn Donkin, one of the latest transfers on this list here for Season 6, Round 6, has now moved to Ford. Now, we have seen Donkin's performance with Ford in other leagues, but this is a return to form for him here in the number 17. We now see behind the wheel of the 7th generation Ford Mustang, made his previous transfer from BMW, meaning he will take a significant chunk of points penalties there under the championship standings. Does find himself much further down the order. I believe before that he would have been in a roughly, I think, 12th or 13th position in the drivers' championship standings. A very consistent driver in his regard there, and now that move to Ford really does seem to have fired him up today. He's 12 thousandths over Carlos Dish, who currently makes his way through turn 12 to Eurocar at turn 13. Having a glance then at those balance of performance listings for tonight's event finds Mercedes and Nissan at the head of advantage for today, 4 kilos lighter than factory weight, and then Aston Martin find themselves with only 2 kilos shed away. BMW, McLaren and Audi all a kilo lighter. Bentley find themselves in a rather precarious spot because they find themselves actually on the receiving end of BOP changes, as we just see across the line there. Carlos Dish to the new fastest lap, 1:44.852 in free practice. Bentley 2 kilos lighter than factory weight. Normally a manufacturer accustomed to losing double figures under BOP. This is quite the change of form, as we do see into the wall there. That is trouble, no doubt, for the 54. Stability issues have been the height of concern for Audi coming in towards tonight's round of the championship. Watching here with the number 17 following the 315. Talking further in towards changes under BOP today finds Porsche 8 kilos lighter over factory weight. Lamborghini and Ford 13 kilos heavier. I think I said 8 kilos lighter there for Porsche. No, 8 kilos heavier. And then Ferrari find themselves really on the short end of it today, as they find themselves 20 kilos heavier than factory. Currently in that top 3 then, Audi, Ford and Lexus. Zolt Beefgartner currently in 3rd. Kieran Rodd makes 4th place. Levi Warner heading up the rookies field here. The number 44 takes a bit of a tumble at turn 13 at Eurocar corner just before the RACC chicane. He finds himself faster than Sam Dicker in 6th place, but technically 2nd by division. Alan Alexander makes 7th with Cas van Velzen in 8th place. Nick Lamming in 9th, division 3rd for the rookies. Joseph Reyes rounds out the top 10, but division 4th as he makes his way onto the gravel off the exit of Repsol corner. Plenty more drivers in attendance for tonight's event, and plenty new names for us here, but a handful of returning ones as well. The number 23, as we just catch on there, stumbling his way from turn 7 and 8. A bit of a wobble there for the Ferrari of Charlie Smith. Last time we saw him was on our radar quite some time ago, back in, I want to say it was Season 5, Round 7 at Donington Park, where in which we saw quite an exciting battle go on during the midway of that race between Smith and several other drivers. It was quite the controversial round. Of course, if one remembers, is where Carlos Dish was taken out at the start of the race by Tyler Vermaak. It was quite the controversial outing in Donington Park, and last week's run at Donington certainly gave us plenty more to talk about with Ferrari's first ever win. Sadly, as it would appear though, Jared Vermeulen won't be able to join us in tonight's event. We do find ourselves with a vacant throne for the next race win to come. Currently, 3 different drivers look poised for that opportunity between Brooklyn Donkin's recent transfer to Ford, Tyler Vermaak now 200ths away from Carlos Dish, and of course Dish standing at the head of the field here in free practice. We see the end of this free practice session. We are quickly into the discussion of qualifying, so that's where we'll be able to get accustomed with both the track and some of our new drivers today. But at the end of this session, it's Carlos Dish fastest with a 1:44.852. It is worth noting that Vermaak is still out on track here, pursuing his chances at pole later on in qualifying. Currently looking to keep the ball rolling here in free practice. Up in front of him there, that's George Todd, if I'm not mistaken, the number 12 of Malwar Racing, the solo act for the Season 3 Teams Champions. Malwar Racing have confirmed a much larger presence coming up in towards Season 7 and 8 as we get in towards the latter months of 2026. I do expect to see the former team's champions back in force by the end of 2026. Right now, though, this is their sole operative on the grid, George Todd. A fiery driver indeed in the number 12. We've seen quite some exciting moments out of him throughout this season. Crossed the line a moment ago there. Zolt Beefgartner makes third at the end of this session ahead of Brooklyn Donkin. So not to rule out Beefgartner from the mix there. TSRC Esports' number 599 Lexus is looking very fired up indeed. At the end of the session, it's Todd fastest by 300. So I don't believe anyone had that one on the bingo cards for today. Ferrari looking fired up here in Barcelona. Revelled in their first ever victory as a manufacturer last round in Donington Park, became the 9th ever to do so in the Sunday League at the hands of Jared Vermeulen. Could it be George Todd's time to shine here to become the first ever Mexican driver to take a race win in the Sunday League? He's got 3 opportunities today, but before that, we head in towards qualifying. 20 minutes of qualifying now underway here on the NLRL Sunday League as we head in towards this session. Already making their way out, we see here with George Todd and Cas van Velzen. You saw there in the foreground actually was, I believe, the 420, yes, going to disqualify himself. John O'Driscoll, of course, some of you may already know, was part of a group we later coined as the Back Row Bandits. We've seen among that group has been himself, Kieran Rod and Alan Alexander in recent memory. We'll see if Rod looks to reciprocate. No, as it would stand, one of the original members actually looking to get the first foot forward. So looking at who leads the order then for the run in towards qualifying today. Sadly, no qualifying predictions to go off of insufficient data for Season 6, Round 6. So we're heading into this one blind, but following on board here with the number 54. Now, before we get in to the first of those flying laps from Carlos Disch, let's get acquainted with some of these new drivers on the field. So we see here just leaving the pit lane at the moment. This is Path with Eddie in the number 56. We also see not far from the exit of the pit lane, currently stationary as it stands at the moment here on board with Yasser Cardoso, the Brazilian talent making his debut in tonight's event. You can see here, this is one we've been very excited to see today. That is Luca Tamburini, a driver we've been following on with in multiple leagues for the last couple of months to even last couple of years now. The Argentinian is a phenomenal talent for Porsche, ruthlessly loyal to Porsche, whether it's through GT4, GT3 or GT2. He's driven it all. And we've seen him do battle with the fearsome 935 over on the TRC GT Manufacturers Cup, one of the only drivers daring enough to do so. So it's going to be rather exciting to see how he fits in on the Sunday League grid tonight. Another new driver here. Now, I cannot exactly vouch for if this is the real Pastor Maldonado, but that's what he's registered himself as here on SimGrid. 323 Maldonado making his way up through turns 7 and 8 as he makes his way up towards TB3 and Camsa Corner. On board with Carlos Disch for our track tour of the Circuit de Barcelona Catalunya, former home of the Spanish Grand Prix, now the home of the Barcelona Catalunya Grand Prix. On board here with the Audi, making our way down towards the Elf Chicane as we begin the first of our flying laps today. The 54 looking fired up for today's event, no doubt. Looking to return to leading form. Leads the championship, but the gap has started to shrink between himself and Tyler Vermaak. Only 20 points between each other as he makes his way out through Renault Corner here at turn 3 for the run up towards Repsol at turn 4. Out through Repsol Corner into what is going to be one of our heavy overtaking spots here in Barcelona. Sayat Corner, turn 5. Sharp hairpin left here. We've seen many drivers attempt to go side by side in races gone by, whether through GT3 or GT4 for that matter. 3 different races coming after this quali session here, 20 minutes each. So short, sweet and snappy action coming up in Barcelona. Out through turn 7 and 8 through to turn 9 here. And this section really does come at you thick and fast for the run into the back straight after Camsa Corner at turn 9 up towards La Caja, which has 2 separate configurations, one of which was used primarily for MotoGP, later was adopted in Formula 1 after, I believe, 2021. We've got information as well. John O'Driscoll, now, yes, of course, disqualified from the session, making his way now here with Carlos Disch through turn 12. Out to turn 13, Eurocar Corner. Now, we're not using the wider Eurocar section at turns what otherwise would have been 13 and 14. We are going down through the RACC chicane. Very, very tight section of the track to manage here. A good exit from this section in towards Catalunya Corner can propel one into easy overtakes. We've seen it done before. Will we see it today? Being another question entirely. Down to the line then, Carlos Disch for our first flying laps from Catalunya Corner. 1:45.095 from the Audi. Nearest to the line from behind him, number 599, Zolt Beefgartner by 157 thousandths. Then we see new fastest time here, Brooklyn Donkin on his debut back to Ford. Now goes fastest by 0.6 of a second. Kieran Rod 4th, Levi Warner now down to 6th place, was momentarily 5th as we now see the introduction of George Todd and Tyler Vermaak. 4th and 2nd. As we're seeing it then, that's 6 different manufacturers, and as I say that, Ford joins the mixture to put doubles on the table in the top 5. Patrick Leger leads the rookies in the number 9 Mustang. It's a Ford 1-3 at the moment. Before that, it would have been 6 different manufacturers in the top 6, but now McLaren plays for doubles as well. Ian McGowan into 4th place after his first flying lap. That's division 2nd as it stands right now. Nearest is the 991 Ian Skeen across the line a moment ago. The Aston Martin, no time set as it stands right now. We also saw the first of the times in here for Maldonado, 10th in the session. Then for Eddie just across the line there to 11th. Nearest is the 813, Luca Tamburini nearest to the line for Porsche. And ITAM Racing. Down across the line there, 11th for Tamburini, in between Maldonado and Eddie in the reserve category. Now they will be later categorized as rookies if they stay on for the rest of the season. Through the first 5 minutes of qualifying today, 995 across the line a moment ago. That was for this one here, Yasukato. So goes to what is going to be the reserves division 3rd, but for rookies division 6th in the 995 Ferrari. Goes up ahead with Eddie, now down to 13th. Number 54 across the line. That was for Carlos Dish. Now in between McGowan and Leger to 4th place. 599 across the line a moment ago for Zolt Beefgarner. No improvement of position found. 61 and 44 nearest to the line. That was for Kieran Rodd and Levi Warner. Both Lamborghinis there, 8th and 9th across the line. Number 1 and number 12 across the line. Cas van Velzen joins the top 10 in the number 1 Porsche for Euro Titans. Number 8 across the line, Tyler Vermack, still reluctantly held out from pole position. 415 thousandths away from Brooklyn Donkin at the head of the field. That Mustang is on different form here. There was quite a fair degree of excitement from our side to see that Donkin had transferred over towards Ford. We had seen how strong his performance has been, historically speaking, with the Mustang. The BMW, by no means a bad choice, but there was always a bit more that could have been found in a different car, and I think we're really starting to see something indicative of championship-level driving from Donkin, albeit he'll be too far away to fight for it for the rest of the season. But if this is the precursor to a possible Donkin championship run in Season 7, I'm all here for it. Also across the line a moment ago, now leading the rookies, Ian McGowan, 2nd overall, ahead of Vermack and Leger. Nearest to the line, number 58. Joseph Reyes, VEC Esports, now into the top 10 on the team's championship, 17th across the line. From behind him, the 813 of Luca Tamburini stays 14th now, in behind Ian Skeen. Number 74, number 87 across the line a moment ago. We see there for Sergio Belda, Holkianos Motorsports, reveling in what is as close as can be for them today as a home race. Albeit, I believe in the case of Belda, his home race is actually over in Valencia. That is where he is local to. In the absence of Valencia today, then, Barcelona will have to serve as the closest standing point for the Holkianos team. 13th for the end of that last qualifying lap just gone. Number 17 nearest the line. 1:44.437 to beat as his own personal best. And across the line he goes, stays that fastest time for the time being. Number 17 still controlling the session's flow at this time. Number 44 across the line. Warner stays 9th in behind Rod. Number 1 across the line. Cas van Velzen stays in 10th. Number 8 across the line. There we see for Tyler Vermack back up and ahead of Ian McGowan. Forces the leading rookie down towards the 2nd row as Vermack now only 600ths away from Brooklyn Donkin. Now, when one considers we have 3 races up for grabs here, and we've seen how controlling the Mustangs can be off the race start. If you saw some of our coverage over on, I believe it was Fatch GT, it was a brilliant, brilliant start to racing there. We saw from the Mustangs, they can very easily swallow up the pack. Their one closest comparator, I would say, is the McLaren on the race start. So this is definitely gearing up to be quite an exciting first 2 rows. We saw that off in the gravel, I believe was, might have been the, was it that? The 44? I'm not 100% sure there. Number 56, nearest to the line. After with Eddie from 18th across the line, as it would appear to be the case, stays there. Onto another flying lap he goes. 11.5 minutes coming up on left to go in this qualifying session. Number 12 is nearest. So here comes George Todd from 6th. Bear in mind, was fastest at the end of free practice. I would not yet count out the performance on that Ferrari. We've already seen them to be more than capable of race wins, as last round proved. Making our way up and around turn 3 and towards turn 4. We'll catch on with them a little later on. Nearest to the line, 315. That's the Bentley of Alan Alexander. New coat of paint there as well. Much brighter colours than what we've last seen him in. We will be hoping to hear from quite a few of these drivers in between some of the races today, but we can't make any guarantees towards that. Otherwise, we'll just be talking about recent news in the world of motorsports. And then our news segment coming up just before race 1. Do bear in mind, as we now see new fastest time there from Patrick Leger, now leads the rookies and overall by 107 thousandths over Brooklyn Donkin, now down to a reluctant P2, but that still reinforces the idea of we are seeing Ford at their prime here in Barcelona. A 1-2 for Ford performance. McLaren could be the only manufacturer stepping in the way to stop them at this time. Back on what we were saying before we see the next driver to the line. A disclaimer for the news segment ahead before race 1. Spoilers ahead for Formula 1 and the World Rally Championship. So if you haven't seen the results to those, I would suggest maybe tabbing away for a little bit before the start of the formation lap. We see pulling into one side there goes Tyler Vermack. He's 600ths away from Brooklyn Donkin. With 10 minutes left to go, there is very little to suggest it is impossible for him to go for a chance at second place, even at a stab of first. But Leger firing on all 8 cylinders there to lead the charge for Ford and for the rookies, ahead of Ian McGowan in Division 2nd, Levi Warner down in Division 3rd. 3 drivers we see routinely over on Fatch GT, so rather curious we're seeing them here fit this grid like a glove after their race in Barcelona. Curiously still, though, of those 3 rookies, only one of which has taken a race win in the past. We saw it in Laguna Seca, and one of the closest finishes in Sunday League history was Levi Warner versus Melvin Milliston during the double sprint in Laguna Seca. Now his time in the 44 Lamborghini has definitely been more of an experimental run than anything. And as we understand it, I believe Warner is looking for a car swap coming into the next round in Imola at round 7 of the championship. So it will be curious to see what he goes with. Now, our predictions, having studied Warner before, would likely be pointing in the direction of Ford. It's a manufacturer he's comfortable with, a manufacturer that he's taken championships with before over on Fatch GT as a 2-time champion himself. Now, there are 2 championships, if memory serves right, was with Porsche, so it more likely to be a bit of a recency bias to the Ford Performance Mustang after his Season 9 championship bout. Brooklyn Donkin onto another flying lap as it stands at the moment. Number 61 across the line a moment ago for Kieran Rodd to stay 8th. Number 315 approaching the line. That's Alan Alexander. And as I believe it at this time, I think Alexander may be gearing up for what is, I'd say, a back row start. We have seen it before. We've seen it many a time. Many a different championship has given us the same result here. But this has been a rather curious one, because normally we've seen from the 315 a bit more of an abstinent run in qualifying. He normally points it in the opposite direction, puts the foot down and waits until he gets disqualified out of the exit of the pit lane the wrong way around. But he's actually taken much more of a pragmatic approach to things here, studying the track and making sure the car fits to spec here. He knows that, yes, he wants to start from the back of the field, but he doesn't want it to be impossible to climb up through the order, knowing that he's got his work cut out for him just south of 20th. This is going to be a curious one coming up in today's event. We do see the recent barge in between Donkin and Vermack in the form of George Todd. I said not to count this one out. We were right for saying so. He's 37 thousandths up the road from Vermack and only 23 thousandths away from Brooklyn Donkin in second place. So it is a super thin top 4 we're looking at here. 167 thousandths across the first 2 rows of the grid, with Leger leading that charge. We're about to see here from Brooklyn Donkin down towards the line in the number 17 Ford. Down through Catalunya corner is a bit wide. They're off the exit. Needs 107 thousandths to go up to pole. Could he find that in this last lap? Not by the looks of it there. 7 minutes before the end of qualifying. Leger has his work cut out for him defending away from Donkin, because if I had to imagine here between these two, we are gearing up for a very vicious start between the two Fords heading in towards turns 1, 2 and 3. We have seen action before. We saw it rather recently over on Fatch GT's first round of season 11 in Barcelona. That is going to be quite the curious case to study. Coming up into 3 20-minute races today. Across the line a moment ago, Alan Alexander sets a time for 11th. And could this be where he throws the towel in? Now, if I had to guess, is he going to come out of the pits the wrong way now, put himself at the back of the field? Or are we seeing a bit of a change in character to Alan Alexander? A driver we went on to comment that he was the honorary member of the Back Row Bandits, alongside Kieran Rodd and John O'Driscoll. But is this the change of character maybe indicative of different aspirations into the second half of the championship? Here he was more playing around, finding his footing, as he now finds 12th place. We'll see, though, towards the end of this session. There's a 315 as it would appear to be the case, looks to exit the pit lane once more. Any further updates will fill you in during that time. Just under 6 minutes left to go in qualifying. As we stand here with the number 17, just getting up past Sam Dicker. Brooklyn Donkin still hungry for pole position, 107 thousandths to conquer. This could be quite a difficult exit to qualifying between 4 different drivers, all within arm's range of one another. Ford, Ferrari and McLaren, the big 3 of modern GT3 meta here on Assetto Corsa Competizione, do find themselves facing down a 4-way qualifying shootout. Now, it would be naive to not consider this one as part of that mixture as well. Carlos Disch with Audi and Euro Titans Endurance. It has been a curious tale for both him and Fate Galaxy. Both of them entered this championship as among the front runners in the rookies, with Disch taking the Rookies Championship in Season 5. Made the move away from Ford over towards Audi. Both of them did that at the same time. 2 drivers that work very, very well against one another. We see them as part of the Whale Racing team over on Continental Racing League. And we see for one already in the case last week of that of Fate Galaxy, the transfer over towards BMW. So already the cracks in the Audi facade starting to show, but is it a case here where Disch, already leading the championship, is willing to firm out some of the issues with the R8, at least until the end of the season, knowing that he has the possibility of an overall Drivers' Championship? It has been something of miracle to watch a story like this unfold in front of our eyes week in and week out, from his debut in Zolder last season to taking the Rookies Championship in Season 5, so narrowly close to an overall Drivers' Championship, to being at the head of the field here in his debut to the overall Drivers' Championship as what is a quote-unquote pro. And speaking of, there are likely to be some announcements coming up in the next couple of weeks regarding changes to how the championship is studied and reported into Season 7. More on that, though, when we have more suffice details to hand. 4 minutes left to go. Disch across that last lap. No improvement found from 5th place. We do note there from behind him was the 991 Ian Skeen, scratching ever closer to a top 10. He's just over 4 tenths away. Actually, sorry, just under 4 tenths away. That's 395 thousandths he's got over, behind that of Cas Van Velten, I should say, for 10th place. It's a curious one here for Van Velten. Driver who is the defending champion of Season 5. Van Velten delivered on a sensational drive. The move to Porsche was certainly a historically charged gamble for the Dutchman, as is one of his highest performing seasons was Season 3, where he was in a 3-way split for the championship between himself, Tyler Vermaak and Melvin Milliston. We saw that climactic battle in Silverstone that gave Milliston his first championship. It was Vermaak to have crossed the line and to take the championship, but a post-race investigation handed it over to Melvin Milliston. Vermaak, Van Velten and Milliston all part of that mix during Van Velten's time with Porsche. Seeing here with Donkin, he's got roughly 2 more laps to play for here in quali, this being among them. Nearest to the line then is the leading number 9 down through the RACC chicane. Patrick Leger has delivered on a sensational qualifying session thus far. 107 thousandths in the clear. He is still well within interception range. But right now, it seems he's touching the glass ceiling the rest of the drivers can't yet break. And across the line he goes to stay that fastest time. A 1:44.330, so no improvement found there. The ceiling could not be raised any further. 3:15 across the line. Alexander still in 11th. 5:99 and 56 across the line. We saw the case there. The 5:99 currently 7th place. The 56, Path to Avedi in 20th. Of the reserves, leading that charge at the moment is Charlie Smith, but unlike the rest of the reserves, he'll be later classified as among the pro or standard drivers of the championship, having previously visited us over the last couple of seasons. The 23, currently signed as a reserve, could be only competing for today's race, if not a handful of others before the end of the season, but isn't looking to commit, by what we heard from him personally, anything substantial or permanent. Number 44 across the line a moment ago. That was for Levi Warner. Stays in that 9th place, still trying to get up and ahead of his fellow Lamborghini, Kieran Rodd, in 8th. That 4th row still very, very closely contested between 3 drivers there. As we see, it's about 0.2 of a second between 3 positions, Beefgartner, Rodd and Warner. Front to back. Number 17 nearest. So here comes Donkin. Tamburini in pursuits from behind for Donkin. Stays in 2nd, so no improvement found there for the 813. Tamburini 18th. Number 77 across the line. In the case there of the number 77, Flavio Casanella, 21st in the session. Worth noting here, yet to have set a time very late into this session, is that of Elias de Vos. Currently leading that Rookies Championship, so he knows there's quite a heavy set of stakes to play for here. In the absence of Jared Vermeulen, who was closest to him after round 5 of the championship, de Vos knows he has to raise the bar, but he is quite a fair distance away here with Leger leading that charge. Now with the new fastest time as it stands there, 1:44.082. The bar just got raised to 355 thousandths of a second over Brooklyn Donkin. It is still a Ford 1-2 here in qualifying. Todd has withdrawn to the pit lane. Rod, however, is across the line. Mack making his way to the line. Only a few hundredths between himself and George Todd in third. Across the line, goes to second. Leapfrogs Brooklyn Donkin. Now closest to Patrick Leger. McLaren caught in between Ford on the podium as we head into the last of our available flying laps. From behind, we saw the number 23 and number 222 across the line. Number 64 approaches. Here's Ian McGowan. Can he get back up into the top 5? Just about gets across the line there before the end of qualifying. Levi Warner leaps to 8th place ahead of Kieran Rodd. Ian McGowan pulls it into one side. There was an improvement found in that last lap just gone, but that's, I believe, all of the juice out of the number 64. He'll stand on the 3rd row. Number 17 is nearest, so Donkin, can he retake second? Not on this go. He loses out to Tyler Vermack on the front row. Starts, by looks of it, at the best of times here on that 2nd row alongside George Todd. Nearest to the line is Flavio Casanella, number 77. He makes his way back into the pit lane, so we go to catch on board with the 315, if I'm not mistaken, who also pulls into one side. So we're throwing up blanks here. Number 599 nearest. Zolt Beefgarner on his way down through turn 12 into turn 13. Can he make his way back into the top 5? He needs about half a second here to catch up to Carlos Dish. We saw for Beefgarner was quite a vibrant qualifying session. We see, though, that Lexus starting to betray him a little bit there, and into the pit lane goes the 599. Sundering the end of his quali session. Looking for redemption here. Now, bear in mind, about looking here 65 thousandths away from the 4th row. Kieran Rodd, having recently fallen down a position to Levi Warner. Can he retake the ground at the end of qualifying? Down to the line goes Rodd. And I think that's plenty an indication that he couldn't. Nearest is the 222. Sam Dicker. Caught behind Nick Lamming at this time by 133 thousandths. Down to the line from 14th place. Where does the McLaren stand at the end of this session? Staying in 14th as it would stand there. Number 12 is nearest. So George Todd, back into the pit lane we go. Number, I believe here, 99 is nearest. So having a glance there, that'll be for Elias de Vos. Looking to set a time by the end of this session, but he might find himself coming up empty. As we now see joining the session is Ben Hart. We'll start towards the back. De Vos to 17th for the end of this session. The last driver to the line then, Joseph Reyes of VEC Esports. Making his way down from 23rd on the field behind Casanella, Duverdi, Cardoso, Tamburini and Maldonado, among several others. Where can Reyes find himself here? Ford looks very strong up towards the front of the field, but it's not all peaches and cream for the rest of the Ford team. 23rd at the end of this session for Joseph Reyes. On pole position then, in overall and the rookies, is Patrick Leger. Alongside him, Tyler Vermack on the front row, Brooklyn Donkin and George Todd on the 2nd row. Rounding out the top 5 is Carlos Dish. 4 different manufacturers in the top 5 alone. McLaren, Ford, Ferrari and Audi. At the end of this qualifying session, a great run of things here in Barcelona that will set the stage for 3 races to follow here on the NLRL Sunday League powered by TRTN. Taking a look into those regulations once again, we head up into now 3 20-minute races back-to-back, each of which are the mandatory pit stop on an open strategy, then a minimum 3.2-second stop. So a hot swap here for most of the drivers on round 6 of the championship. And spoilers ahead then as we head into the new segment, as we will discuss the recent results from Formula 1 and the World Rally Championship. And taking a look in towards that news segment now, starting things off in Formula 1, George Russell wins the Austrian Grand Prix, continuing a hot streak for Mercedes after a brief interruption in Barcelona from Lewis Hamilton and Ferrari. Russell continues the challenge against his teammate Andrea Kimi Antonelli for the lead of the 2026 Drivers' Championship in Formula 1. Over in the World Rally Championship, it was Seb Ogier to win in the 2026 Acropolis Rally Greece, much to the dismay of Thierry Neuville, who in our last report surrounding this run of the Acropolis Rally Greece was at the time on day 2 leading for Hyundai. And now Toyota turns the tide once again. So far then, nearly undefeated this season. They have been on some of the most dominant form any rally team can be in the twilight chapter of Rally 1 as we know it before we head into the WRC 27 regulations next year coming. Plenty to discuss on that as we get into the later parts of the year. Looking on with the grid at the moment before we head in towards the formation lap here for race 1 of round 6 of season 6 of the NLRL Sunday League. And taking a look here, Patrick Leger heads up pole position alongside Tyler Vermack in second, with Brooklyn Donkin in third and George Todd in fourth. Carlos Deitch makes fifth place and Ian McGowan in sixth. Zolt Beefgartner in seventh, Levi Warner in eighth, Kieran Rod in ninth, and Cass Van Velten rounds out the top 10. Alan Alexander in 11th place with Ian Skeen in 12th, Nick Lamming in 13th with Sam Dicker in 14th, Sergio Belda in 15th, and Charlie Smith makes 16th place. Elias DeVos in 17th, Pastor Maldonado in 18th, Luca Tamburini in 19th, and Yasser Cardoso rounds out the top 20. Path with Eddie in 21st, Flavio Castanella in 22nd, Joseph Reyes in 23rd, and Ben Hart in 24th. Rounding out the 25th and final position on the grid for race 1 of 3 is John O'Driscoll. And unless we see any disconnects over the course of race 1, that will be how it stays for these drivers. 20 minutes of racing coming up around the corner for these drivers today. Bright and sunny conditions. 40 degrees trackside temperature, though. It's going to be a punishing one on those Pirellis. We've seen similar conditions in Spain before when we had our double sprint race last season in Valencia. So among the hottest of track temperatures, I really do think we are getting up for that one there. 36 degrees ambient, 40 on track. So this is going to be quite the test of strength for those Pirelli P0s, affixed to all 25 cars on this grid today. In terms of ones to certainly watch out for here, there could be quite a few troubles coming up for Aston Martin. Historically speaking, the Vantage, a great machine in GT, but it chews through those Pirellis. That could be some serious trouble for them. Same story for Porsche, so keeping an eye there for Ian Skeen and Cass Van Velten, both in and out of the top 10. Worth keeping an eye, though, for Ferrari of all manufacturers. Of course, with a single mandatory pit stop in today, it's totally optional on if the drivers take up new tyres. That will add a significant chunk to their stop time from 3.2 seconds to upwards of 20 stationary. We get into the 30-second warning, so going to catch on board here with Patrick Leger, just hiding underneath the overhead gantry here in the Circuit de Barcelona, Catalonia. Former home of the Spanish Grand Prix, home to race 1 of round 6 today here in the NLRL Sunday League Season 6. We'll leave you on board with Leger as we get in towards the formation lap, and we'll return to you in just a moment's time. So still on board here for the formation lap with Patrick Leger. Worth noting, starting from the pit lane then will be the number 44 of Levi Warner. When discussing major overtaking opportunities here at the Circuit de Barcelona, Catalonia, you are staring down the sights of the first among many. Of course, there is the expectation for side-by-side battling down through turns 1, 2, and 3 for the run out through Elf Chicane into Renault Corner. But seeing here at turns 4 and 5, Repsol and Seat could certainly be the opportunity for many an attempted switchback. Making our way through to turn 6, this slight kink to the left here to give us a very sharp left-hander coming up in towards turn 7. You can see from the point of view here of Leger just how sharp this section actually is. It's very easy to get caught out and run off to that right-hand side. We can see there is a rather sneakily hidden sausage curb ready to collect you on your run away. Making our way up and around through Camper Corner. This is ever so slightly for some off camber, and does make it an area where it's super easy to run out wide. Again, like we see at turn 7, you can see there was an exiting curb there. that will catch you off guard if you're not prepared for it. So for the slightly more unstable cars like Lamborghini and Porsche, that is a huge area of concern. Also starting from the pit lane now, we've just got information to hand there from the 991 Aston Martin of Ian Skeen, previously slated to start in 12th. Now starts from the pit lane here on race 1. Ones to watch over the course of this race. Of course, that top 4 is looking incredibly lively. Leger, Vermaak, Donkin and Todd. It'd be naive, though, to leave out Carlos Disch. But certainly there's going to be some problems for that Ferrari. We've seen in Fats GT's opening round in Season 11, there was a huge concern for Ferrari off the race start here. But as it stands, heading down towards the line, 25 cars in attendance, 23 on track and 2 from the pit lane. Making our way down towards the line then for race 1 of 3 here on Season 6, Round 6 of the NLRL Sunday League, powered by TRTN. Down to the line we go. Leger from Vermaak here in Barcelona. Without further ado, here at the former home of the Spanish Grand Prix. We are green and racing here in Barcelona, and a great start for the front row, as to be expected there from the Ford of Patrick Leger, but very quick on the heels is the number 8 of Tyler Vermaak. In behind, we see a deceptively good start from Ferrari, going toe-to-toe with Ford. Number 12 versus number 17 in the mix as well. There was Ian McGowan heading up towards turn 1 we go to see that Brooklyn Donkin was looking around the outside on Tyler Vermaak. Still holds his ground there now, getting up and ahead of him. On the inside was that of Carlos Disch. An ecstatic start for Audi, an even better one here for Ford as Leger peels away from Vermaak. Yellow flags down the line, the 995 caught out, that's Yasser Cardoso. For Ferrari, one of the new drivers to the field, caught out at turn 3. As it stands at the moment then, Leger from Vermaak, from Disch in your podium, rounding out the top 5, Donkin and McGowan, as we're back into green flag conditions out of Seat corner. A brilliant start then from the Ford, textbook from Leger, the Dutchman looking for his first victory in the Sunday League. We see another yellow flag out, the number 23, Charlie Smith, in trouble at Seat corner. We heard the sifting of gravel, so it's likely to assume he's gone out wide. Number 58 now in trouble off of turn 6, now pulling into one side, I believe. The 58 there, if I'm not mistaken, was Reyes, if I'm not entirely mistaken, on the run down towards Lakaya for the first time here on race 1. Number 9 away from the number 8, and then the number 54 makes 3rd place. Behind them, Brooklyn Donkin now up and ahead of Ian McGowan. Behind them, George Todd, having fallen down through the order, so as expected was heartbreak for Ferrari. A very solid start on the opening straight, but swallowed up through sector 1. And number 12 now relegated from the top 5, so Beefgarner in 7th, with Alan Alexander up from 11th to 8th. At the start of today's race, Kieran Rod in 9th, Cas van Velzen maintains a top 10 at this time, Sam Dicker in 11th place ahead of Nick Lamming. And as it stands there, Lamming's actually fallen away from that of Elias de Vos. We see John O'Driscoll, who started, I should point out, from the back of this field. 25 cars in attendance. Now finds himself in the top 15 with a chance to go to 13th place over the course of the next lap. Looking up at the head of the field to see here, Vermaak looks to be possibly under siege from an approach by Carlos Disch, the current championship lead and Rookies Championship title holder from Season 5. Hungry for second place. And that would be a stepping stone for him to try and conquer the lead of this race. But right now, following on a trend set by Jared Vermeulen last round, we could be looking at consecutive overall Rookies victories, with Leger hunting down his first. Further down the line there, looks like some trouble here for Kieran Rod. Now falls into 15th place behind Sergio Belda. In the background, we see Luca Tamburini out wide there onto the gravel. And manages by a hair's width to hold his ground off the exit of turn 4, ultimately falls in behind Maldonado to 17th place, 18th place, I should illustrate there. Looking up in that top 5 as things only look to be getting closer and closer. The number 64 of Ian McGowan is closing distance here on Brooklyn Donkin. George Todd's not too far away either, but up at the front of the field we see here for Carlos Disch is starting to hemorrhage distance from Tyler Vermaak in the opening 4 minutes of racing, as Vermaak now sets his sights firmly on the race lead. We see into the pit lane. This is a curious one. That's Cas van Velzen. Number 77, also in the gravel off the exit of turn 9. Could there have been a connected incident between the two? Cas van Velzen looks to possibly be out of race 1. Could his chances for consecutive championships start to fall away here? 3rd in the championship, only by roughly 28 points away. 38 points, I think, was roughly the tally there. And that could be starting to fall apart. Up at the head of the field, Tyler Vermack getting closer and closer to Patrick Leger, but straight line speed will always be the upper hand for Ford. McLaren try as they may in the corners. We've seen this in so many different championships now. The clear difference in maneuverability between the Ford and the McLaren. Try as they may, you get onto those straightaways, and that 5.4 litre does plenty more talking than the 4 litre behind the driver's seat of that McLaren. A formidable engine, no doubt, but just can't quite cut the mustard over good old-fashioned American steel. Woking v Detroit. The background then, see here from Audi. Third at the moment. Now, any slip up from the front row between these two, because these are two drivers that have not often battled with one another. They are not super familiar to one another's fighting style. So we could be seeing a culture clash coming up between the number 9 and the number 8. So far, though, Leger is holding his ground, playing things quite close to the chest. Another yellow flag out, this time for Luca Tamburini, dropping all the way from 14th place off the exit of Repsol corner. Heartbreak for the Argentinian talent on debut to the Sunday League. Not an easy race to follow up into here on just how airtight things have been from the race start. In the pit lane at the moment, super early stop for Kieran Rudd. You can see for why that is with damage on the number 61. Recently up and ahead of Maldonado is Ben Hart, having started also from the back of the field. So much like we see for John O'Driscoll, Ben Hart is carving his way up through the back lot of the field. A little bit of a tumble there off the exit of turn 10. Looking up through the order, you can see packed in like sardines here. You could barely fit a coin between most of them on the run towards Catalunya corner. This is the top 5 we're looking at, with Leger leading over Vermack, Deesh in 3rd. We see here from Donkin 4th place, trying to hold off both McGowan and that of George Todd. Top Beefgarner not too far away at all. Alan Alexander in and amongst the top 10. Sam Dicker in 9th. Rounding out that top 10 at the moment is Elias DeVos. John O'Driscoll in hot pursuit, though. Keep an eye to this one here. Into the pit lane goes that of Sergio Belda, number 74, now in. Early stop. Only 5 minutes, actually nearly 6 into this race. Watching here, Ian McGowan getting very, very close now, and a stop-go has been admitted to Kieran Rudd for speeding in the pit lane, so it's really gone to be a case here from bad to worse for the Lamborghini. Already took damages, was into the pit lane far earlier than he'd like. Now finds himself presented with a penalty. I would not be too surprised if that's the straw that breaks the camel's back today for him. Look at it go and catch on board if we can here. As we see in the background there, that's Ian McGowan out wide. At turn 7, he manages to hold it within the white lines. Fair play to him, but I think drifting is far from what he wanted the car to do at this time. You can see in the background there, getting up ahead of him was that of Zot Beefgartner. Ian McGowan, sundered from his chances of a top 5, now promotes George Todd to 5th. But a new nemesis met here for Brooklyn Donkey. You can see just how aggressive the lunge in towards turn 10 was there for George Todd. He's that far away and already trying to get into the head of the number 17 we're on screen with at the moment. Here with Brooklyn Donkin. There has been talk of the paddock recently, then his transfer over to Ford, and we have seen some rather promising results across free practice and qualifying, but now is really where pen meets paper. Another yellow flag out. Charlie Smith in jeopardy. We'll go to try and catch on board here if we can with the number 23 Ferrari, who I believe is just getting back up and going here off the exit of Kamsa corner. Getting up past him there, Ian Skeen. So now we see the 23 back up on the charge, but down in 21st place. It would not be all that surprising to me if it would be a pit lane run coming up around the corner for him. Seeing here with John O'Driscoll. Now firmly got his sights set on the 222 ahead. Sam Dicker in 9th place. Behind him, Elias DeVos and Nick Lamming. We see here from John O'Driscoll this very committed drive. The number 23 has actually been emergency towed to the pit lane, so that could be Smith out of race 1. That would mark another DNF here after Cas van Velzen's dramatic exit of race 1. That has really come to be quite a shocker there. We still don't quite know the reasons behind what went on for Van Velzen to see him out of race 1 so early in this triple header. 2 more races to follow after today, but follow after this race, I should say, today. But that is really quite the shocker. Looking back up through the order here to see George Todd. He's got clear line of sight on what is now presiding over that race-leading fight. Let's go to catch on board with either party involved in the fight at the head of the field here. The number 9 versus the number 8, as they are barely a car's length from one another. Patrick Leger versus Tyler Vermack. Leger contesting that race lead. He's held onto this one tooth and nail over the McLaren behind him. You can see just how much rotation that 720S has in these medium speed corners. Heading up through Eurokart into the RACC chicane. This should be another area where Tyler Vermack is able to sort of spread his wings a bit there on the McLaren. We can see he's practically pushing Leger out through that section. Now that's just how much closing distance he's able to reel in. Off the exit of turn 16, though, he's got to pray he's got a close enough distance to that Ford to stay with in towards turn 1, because letting loose what is currently an unrestricted 550 plus horsepower under the bonnet of that Ford Mustang, that gap opens up to half a second. So it really does go to show how vital the engine is playing a role here for Ford. They have really assembled quite a bit of kit in the form of that Mustang. Such a bizarre departure from what have been previous GT programs with the GT back during the legendary GTE era, before it was replaced by LMGT3. And Ford does seem rather excited to continue expanding their influence in endurance racing with the arrival of their prototype car in the World Endurance Championship next season. They'll be arriving alongside McLaren in the hypercar category. The Mustang then representing their latest in race car development. The Mustang Gen 7 currently serves as the base plate for multiple different disciplines. V8 Supercars uses it in its Gen 3 configuration. Ford themselves have started up the Mustang Cup. We also note there the number 44 has retired from the session as well, so heartbreak for Ben Hart. We do note the number 1 is back out on track, so Van Veltsen's still adamant to see at least points on the table. And with the Mustang back on the conversation as well, also sees racing in GT4 and GT3, as we see here. Currently behind the wheel then, Patrick Leger still holds his ground over Tyler Vermack. It has been quite the strong defense thus far, and over halfway through the session, both of these two still have to see the pit lane at some point. I think they find themselves in a bit of a gunslinger draw, seeing who pulls the trigger first, who's got the fastest hand into that pit lane. Try as he may, even though he's nearly 2 tenths faster in the last lap, he just can't cut the mustard on that opening straight, and that is painfully so what's keeping McLaren away from a race win at this time. So long as Ford can keep themselves wide enough in these corners, there are few, if many, chances for Vermack to get the leg up here over Leger. He is going to need more so than ever the element of surprise. Leger, an experienced driver, we've seen his prowesses over on Fats GT, knows exactly what a sudden jolt of aggression looks like from his contemporaries. He's not fazed by them. There's nothing to say he'll be fazed by Vermack's attempts either. I'd say a solid 30% of all battles are decided on psychology alone, where it's getting inside the driver's head first, faking out for a move. We see it's a very commonly utilized tactic. We've actually seen this one use it quite a lot here. George Todd now fighting with Brooklyn Donkin. We see here new fight, Maldonado v Hart. Side by side for 10th place as it stands right now, the two BMWs. Hart having started towards the back of the field, I should point out as well. Maldonado currently holds ground. Vermack looking there on the inside. He does bump doors with the number 9. Where does it go now? Out through turn 12. It could get ugly between these two. Leger mounts the curbs. Vermack's got the longer run in towards turn 13. So yes, the element of surprise was ultimately what he needed. That didn't come with the cleanest of overtakes. As we now see squeezed into the mix, there goes the 54. Vermack doesn't take this as the opportunity to quit whilst you're ahead and come into the pit lane to start dictating the strategy for the rest of the field surrounding you. As we see there, the top 5 still super, super close. But your new race leader is Tyler Vermack. Patrick Leger in 2nd, Carlos Disch in 3rd, Brooklyn Donkin in 4th, and George Todd in 5th. See for the number 9. And this is something we can attest to in times gone by. When overtaken, we do get to see a broadly different side of Leger. Very, very composed when he's on the defending end, but when he gets in towards attacking, he is very, very dead set on commanding that position. We have seen some cutthroat moments in the past, and that does often create some trouble. We'll see, though, if he elects to behave himself today. We see in the pit lane then John O'Driscoll, after what has been, I would say, a phenomenal opening stint. In and then out of the pit lane he goes. Nick Lamming also in, and Ben Hart follows to the pit lane. Vermack then leading over Leger, using the last of his momentum here before he runs in towards that pit lane. Now, given how little time we have left, we've got roughly, I'd say, the scope of about 4 more laps of available racing here for these drivers. So really not too long to consider. That's, I'd say, now or never, really, in the case of Tyler Vermack. We have seen drivers, and namely Carlos Disch, we've seen it in the past, really try to toe the line as to how far they're willing to stay out on track before they come to the pit lane. You see right now, Deesh could be coming in sooner rather than later because he's got quite a bit of pressure from behind from his own teammate, Brooklyn Donkin, on his transfer to Ford, and also from Malwar Racing's George Todd. The solo act for the Season 3 Teams champions, and sort of the harbinger for the later arrival of the rest of the Malwar Racing squadron into Season 7 and 8 later on this year. Staying out as Patrick Leger comes to the pit lane, so for Max, staying out with 6 minutes left to go. Leger is in, Deesh stays out, so does Donkin, so does Todd. Beefgartner is in. We'll see for Elias de Vos what is currently the gamble on pit strategy. We can see a little bit of damage there for the 99, but that wouldn't have otherwise brought him in. This is his own decision. We're seeing into the pit lane goes Elias de Vos, Maldonado, then Cardoso, then McGowan. McGowan already having pitted, so Maldonado's in. Cardoso would be next on consideration. You can see right now being intercepted by Ian McGowan. Looking to return to a stronger position among the top 10. You can see he was even looking towards the inside at one point there into the RACC chicane. That would have ended rather poorly. We do note there, 58 in trouble. That's Reyes. And also nearly collects there the approaching 77 of Flavio Casanella. Cardoso in as well. De Vos on exit at this time. Maldonado just at a stop there. We see De Vos getting up past him. Back into the pit lane there. That looks like a retirement for the 44. That is Ben Hart back in the pit lane. We saw him just materialize from thin air, not 44, 40. 44 would be the Lamborghini of Levi Warner, who I believe is also out of this race. Back into the pit lane goes the 40. That could be the end in his time here on race 1. 4.5 minutes left to go for Max. Still leads over Deesh. Donkin in third. Todd super close behind. You must still consider here on the podium. Very, very close between each other. Donkin staying out long. We'll see, though, if he comes to the pit lane. Vermaak would be the first among that charge of 4 drivers. Currently 5 remaining when one considers Casanella in 10th. Vermaak stays out. As for Deesh, he's in. Following him goes his teammate, Brooklyn Donkin. Todd stays out. So 5-Star and Malwar Racing, the 2 challengers to the throne of what has been so far Euro Titans-led dominance in this championship, remain out in the closing 4 minutes of racing. For Casanella, likely the consideration of a pit lane run. He's currently up at turn 9, so fair distance between himself and the pit lane. We can see among the casualties in today's race, the number 40, number 1, and on screen at the moment, the number 23 of Charlie Smith. You also take note here, and this was one that snuck under the radar, having joined us very late into the session here, the number 20 of Jose Rivera. Now, hopefully we'll get to see more of him over the next 2 races, but this is one that snuck in just after qualifying, if I'm not mistaken. We didn't see anything of him during that time. Tyler Vermaak, hungry for another victory in this championship. Of course, now stands as the second most amount of race wins in the NLRL Sunday League. 8 wins in his career in this series. Still a far cry from that overall scores. We see the 56 of Dwivedi there, temporarily holding him up with his own battles to fight from 19th. Vermaak with 8 career wins. Currently stands in alongside Carlos Deesh. The most amount of race wins there off in the background went to Poth Dwivedi. Most amount of race wins then, 18 from Melvin Milliston. And it has been a curious story, of course. We reported in the last couple of weeks that 5-Star Esports had signed Melvin Milliston, but things have been remarkably tight-lipped ever since. Through the grapevine, we heard information pertaining to the fact, as we now see from Akin at the pit lane, that Milliston's ambitions no longer lie with the Sunday League, but we can't confirm its efficacy at this time. Also in the pits goes that of George Todd. So among the last pit stop runs today, this could open the doors up for Carlos Deesh, but it has to be a super quick run here in and out of the pits for that of Tyler Vermaak. It is worth noting for Patrick Leger, his hesitancy to the pit lane has cost him position to Carlos Deesh. So the Audi could be looking to undercut the rest of the field here. Vermaak's at a stop. He'll be off the jacks in a moment's time, but with 2 minutes left to go, we see that Todd's off before Vermaak, but not enough to close on distance. The 54 rounds Catalunya corner and could intercept the pair of them. The number 8 gets up towards the pit exit line. He's off of the limiters and off he goes. The 54 still screaming along behind him there is Patrick Leger. It could be anyone's game down towards turn 1. You can see there, that's the number 12 of George Todd. So second well within grasp as we see Tyler Vermaak escape up through turn 1 at the Alf chicane. We see nearly contact there between the number 12 and the number 54 as he holds ground. George Todd second. So a very sudden shift in the order there. Vermaak played that one to a T, looking for his career 9th victory in the Sunday League. Bear in mind, with 3 races today, he could extend that up into the double digits by the end of tonight. But he is going to have to lay in performances akin to this one here 2 more times with a massively adapting grid behind him. It's worth noting that Vermaak didn't start on pole position. He started alongside it, if memory serves rightly. So he has to do this all over again 2 more times to find himself with more victories akin to double figures. As we enter the last minute worth of racing, we could actually be on the last lap right now with only 40 seconds left to go on race 1. Making their way down through to turn 10. It's a very close call here for Tyler Vermaak, going to catch on board with the McLaren at the head of the field right now as the number 9 continues to fight for the podium. It's going to be a very, very close tie to the finish here. We see in the top 5 side-by-side action between McGowan and Donkin. They just hold the ground between one another there. Behind them is Zolt Beefgarden. This is going to be a super thin finishing margin to this race. Watching on board with Tyler Vermaak, because this could be where the race wraps up right here and now on race 1. Making our way down to the line. 6 seconds left to go. Will it be the checkered flag? Coming up around turn 16. Down to the line we go. And by looks of it, yes, it will be, as now the checkered flag is out. Tyler Vermaak wins in Catalonia. Race 1 gives him career win number 9 at a hair's width margin, behind by 3 tenths apart. George Todd to 2nd, Carlos Deesh to 3rd, Patrick Leger to win in the rookies. Brooklyn Donkin rounds out the top 5. Ian McGowan right behind him by 4 tenths. 3 tenths behind those two is Zolt Beefgarden for 7th, Alan Alexander for 8th, John O'Driscoll for 9th, and Elias De Vos rounds out the top 10, and what I must say is among the closest top 10 finishes we have ever seen. And what a way to kick off the triple header. Right behind them, we see Sergio Belda holds off Nick Lamming to 11th. And Holcianos' home race here in Spain. Maldonado on debut to see 13th in this race today. That'll be Division 5th among the rookies. Sam Dicker, Division 6th across the line. From behind him there is the new driver, Jose Rivera. 24th for the end of this race. Ian Skeen looking at 15th for Aston Martin. Behind him, Yasser Cardoso. And on debut here, Luca Tamburini in the top 20. 17th for the 813, but a series of highs and lows for the Porsche. But 2 more races to go. We'll certainly see a more vibrant performance on the horizon for the Argentine talent. Tyler Vermaak then, career win number 9 for the South African talent. Now breaks away from what was a joint 2nd, actually, between himself and Carlos Deesh. Stepping ever closer now, only half the number of race wins of the all-time record holder, Melvin Milliston, at 18. He could be seeing double figures by the end of tonight, as mentioned before. But what an opening race of 3 that has come to be here in Barcelona. So the end of race 1. We'll wait for the final result to come on through. And we do see it there. Tyler Vermaak wins in race 1 with George Todd in 2nd, Carlos Deesh in 3rd, Patrick Leger in 4th, Brooklyn Donkin in 5th, Ian McGowan in 6th, Zolt Beefgarden in 7th, Alan Alexander in 8th, O'Driscoll in 9th, and De Vos rounds out the top 10 from 11th to 20th. We have Belter, Lamming, Maldonado, Dicker, Skeen, Cardoso, Tamburini, Castanella, Duvetti, and Reyes. From 21st to 26th, we have Rod, Hart, Warner, Van Velten, Rivera, and Smith. Multiple DNFs though. Hart, Warner, Van Velten, and Smith among them. Well, that was certainly quite the open to today's triple header of races. We'll be heading up into race 2 in a moment's time. We're going to have a quick peer in with the channels here to see if there are any. Looking for... No, it doesn't appear to be the case where we have anything indicative of anyone waiting for interviews. So we will just get back in with the conversation surrounding that run in towards race 2. Now, of course, 20 minutes between each race at this time. Looking back in towards those regulations. For those of you joining us on the YouTube release, you find us here in the last 2 minutes of the rerun of qualifying after a disconnect that ultimately saw the 2nd race of 3 red flags. Now, as far as we've been led to believe, the current schedule has it at the end of this qualifying session, we'll go back into race 2 and then subsequently race 3 before calling it a quit here on round 6 of the championship. So it is going to be a bit of a mind bender here, trying to readjust to what is going to be, by some standards here, a broadly different look of the grid. John O'Driscoll across the line there to 6th, and in this rerun of qualifying didn't sit things out, is now looking to start things up towards the top 10. The same could not be said for multiple drivers at the back of the field with disqualifications. But oh my goodness, now we're seeing it there. Ah, he had us there, hook, line, and sinker. We really did think that was going to be different there for O'Driscoll, but some habits you just can't change. That's heartbreaking, really, because what he's done is proven to us there, the point we made earlier in this broadcast, that he could absolutely start in a top 10. He's proven that point. He's thrown all of it away. We'll see what he does, though, of course, because he has actually inspired many more drivers to follow in his example. That's 5 disqualifications, all of which voluntary, from Skeen, Alexander, Rod, Taylor, and O'Driscoll. A large ensemble of drivers looking to try from the back of the field. Old habits die hard then for the 420. 30 seconds left to go, so we are among the last available laps to our drivers today. Brooklyn Donkin across the line to start his last flying lap in the qualifying rerun. Nearest to the line from behind him will be, by looks of it, the 995. That'll be for Yasser Cardoso. Also with enough time here to go for one more shot at qualifying. From 17th stays there. 599 from behind him. We see for Zolt Beefgartner from 7th up to 4th. Does he have enough momentum for one more go? You can see him back off there at the end of quali. No being the short answer. The 599 contempt for a second row start. A great hustle here on the rerun for Zolt Beefgartner. Nearest is the number 40. Ben Hart ends the session 14th. Behind him, the number 20 across the line. Jose Rivera, on his first qualifying appearance here on the Sunday League, marks 11th place in his debut. Now, we did see him in small part over the course of race 1, a very, very late entry, but in his first actual quali session, albeit one that definitely did appear by odd circumstance, he's been able to prove himself capable in the top 15. Tamburini rounds out the top 15 as it stands. Nearest the line, the number 9 across the line there, Leger. 140 thousandths in the clear over Tyler Vermack. 144.260 to beat. Vermack's in the pit lane, so really all that could upset his control of the lead here would be Ian McGowan off the exit of turn 15 into turn 16 at Catalonia Corner. Where can the 64 find himself? It's been a delightful rerun of qualifying for this one here. Ian McGowan to the line. He did find an improvement, but not enough for second, but he will more than gladly hold on to third. The 54 across the line. Carlos Dish sees 7th place on the quali rerun. The number 12 could be seeing a top 5 here. He is tantalizingly close. 23 thousandths away from Donkin across the line. Goes to third, up over McGowan. George Todd on the second row in the quali rerun, but it's Patrick Leger back on a pole position. 2 times on the trot in one race weekend. He'll be elated to a double pole position, but this time around in race 2 and 3 to follow, can he find himself presented with a race win today? Missed out to Tyler Vermack in race 1 at the end of qualifying as we now head in towards race 2. A solid end to qualifying then on the restart to the session after a red flag on race 2, of which we'll get back underway with in just a moment's time. Patrick Leger on pole position in both the rookies and overall. Vermack second and Todd in third. We'll get through the grid run in just a moment's time as we head up in towards race 2 today. Waiting for the grid to form out. This could make for quite a spicy restart to things as we head up in towards race 2's grid. 3 minutes before the formation lap. Patrick Leger back on pole position. The same front row we saw from the start of race 1 after a second impromptu qualifying session. These two continue to reign here in Barcelona. George Todd makes third, Ian McGowan in fourth, Zolt Beefgartner in fifth, and Brooklyn Donkin in sixth, Carlos Dish in seventh, Elias DeVos in eighth, Nick Lamming in ninth, and Sam Dicker rounds out the top 10. Jose Rivera in 11th, with Sergio Belda in 12th, Pastor Maldonado in 13th, with Ben Hart in 14th, Luca Tamarini in 15th, Joseph Reyes in 16th, Yasser Cardoso in 17th, for Flavio Casanella in 18th, Path Dwevedi in 19th. John O'Driscoll rounds out the top 20. Old habits die hard then for the 420. He was capable of a top 10 start, but chooses to stick by what he knows, part of the original back row bandits. Then the 420 doesn't find himself alone at the back of this field, as he, as well as 4 other drivers, voluntarily disqualified themselves in the rerun. Willow Taylor, Kieran Rodd, Alan Alexander, and Ian Skeen comprise the last 4 positions of a 24-car grid, 12 on either side of which, for the start of race 2, the rerun of round 6. Race 1's results will still count as valid there. That is going to be a rather curious one heading in towards race 2. 2 minutes before the start of the formation lap, and things that will still weigh plenty heavy on the mind here of Patrick Leger is the result of race 1, where strategy had it away from him to see even the podium at the end of race 1. He'll be looking now with a much more elbows out approach to defense. He will be trying to keep Vermack at bay for as best as he possibly can here. George Todd starting up in third place. Will definitely look for a more aggressive start, but is a victim of machinery here. The Ferraris have been among the lesser for starts in Barcelona. If you caught on with our broadcast earlier this week on Fats GT Season 11 Round 1, you would have seen Daniel Homoki, who started up at the front of the field, be swallowed up by a pack of Fords at every which side of him on the run down towards turns 1 and 2 here in Barcelona. So that could be much the same story for George Todd, because he's surrounded on both sides here by McLarens. Ian McGowan to 4th place. Zolt Beefgarder, also a formidably fast machine, the Lexus RCF. Could be one to watch there in the top 5. Brooklyn Donkin in 6th. Carlos Deesh in 7th. You see there, De Vos heads up 3rd in the rookies, leading the rookies championship after Barcelona. Not Barcelona, sorry, Donington. Could lead it after Barcelona, being the real question for De Vos. Ultimately, though, missed out on the opportunity of a rookies win in race 1 to this one here. Patrick Leger will once again start at the head of the table. So 40 seconds before the start of the formation lap, 10 seconds before we get on board with this one here. Patrick Leger. You'll hear it there, the 30-second warning. And hoping then, all things considered, fingers crossed, what should be a smooth getaway into race 2. On board then with Patrick Leger. Long awaited then the return to racing here, but fortunately so, we're back in for action on race 2 of today. Here at Season 6, Round 6 of the NLRL Sunday League, powered by TRTN. If you're joining us over the course of the next couple of days into next week, Monday evening, we've got Season 11, Round 2 of Fats GT. Ian Skeen starts from the pit lane there, worth noting, as we pull away into the formation lap on board with Patrick Leger. You can see the rest of the grid following in from behind him as we get into the formation lap. Later on next week then, of course, on Monday evening, Season 11, Round 2 of Fats GT. If you're joining us over on TRC on Tuesday evening, we have I believe it is Season 6, Round 4 of the TRC Sprint Cup EU Series. Wednesday morning, we have another round coming up from the Competizione Performance League GT4 Pro-Am Cup America Series in the early hours of the morning BST here in the UK. Otherwise, will be in the hours of the evening on Tuesday Eastern Standard Time. Wednesday evening sees another round of the OLR XVSR Midweek GT3 Championship. What is the acting name, I would say, of what is effectively VSR Season 12. Friday evening coming up, then we get into the second round of the OLR XVSR LMU Championship, live from Bahrain. On Saturday, we see the return of the Ginetta Summer Challenge over on HCCL. We'll be heading over towards Donington Park for our penultimate round of that 4-part series. And then we get on into Season 2, Round 2. What we originally thought was going to be this Saturday was actually this Saturday coming for the Continental Racing League GT3 Teams Championship. And then, of course, Sunday, 6:30 p.m. BST. This week coming then, as we do see, Dog very excited about that one, is Season 6, Round 7 of the NLRL Sunday League. And if you want a personal bit of advice from me, if you ever want peace in your house, and I really do mean Zen, Buddhist-like peace, never in your life buy a German Shepherd. You can hear it in the background. I hear that every single day, and it is driving me slowly but surely insane. And I guarantee to you, it is either going to be one of the neighbors or a passing aircraft. Because for some reason, when I got a dog, I thought, maybe it's going to be a nice loyal companion, not an anti-aircraft radar system. But, you know, we can't win them all. Heading down the back straight off of turn 9 in towards turn 10. Leger from Vermac. And this is going to be a fiery reignition of their rivalry at the head of the field, where Vermac triumphed in race 1. Could he be so lucky on in the run into race 2 and 3 today? You see here then, on with the number 9. Number 8 right behind him. There will be plenty of eyes to that Ferrari on whether or not he could come out on top in the opening straight here, with McLaren, Ford and Lexus hounding him from the top 5. There's a lot of pressure mounting on the number 12 of George Todd of Malwar Racing. We see here coming to a screeching halt, allowing the rest of the grid to collect themselves from behind. And it is a cheeky tactic from Vermac there, because he's stalling the race leader. So he's causing him to hemorrhage heat from the tyres on that leading Mustang. We'll see how much that comes to be an effective strategy as we make our way down towards the line here for the start of race 2. 20 minutes against the clock, 24 cars in attendance, 23 on track and 1 from the pit lane, 11 on one side and 12 on the other. Down to the line here for the rerun of Season 6, Round 6 here into race 2. The NLRL Sunday League powered by TRTN down towards the line then here for the second time in Barcelona. We are green and racing here in Barcelona. A great start from the front row and a better start from the second row. As you can see, closing in on these two is McGowan and that of George Todd. But you can see right off the bat, Tyler Vermack with the best of starts up at the front of the field. The number 9 still holds the inside for the run down towards turns 1 and 2. What does Leger choose to do with it? With better rotation through turn 1, holding his ground into turn 2. The number 8 leads over the number 9. Meanwhile, in the background, yellow flags out for the number 58 and number 20. You can see spilling over in the background, immediate casualties. Further down the line, the 222 was one among them. Sam Dicker collected in the mix. And also caught out was the number 58 here of that of Joseph Reyes back into the pit and now out of race 2. Emerging onto the scene of a crime here is the number 991, now getting up and alongside Sam Dicker at turn 3. Having a glance in there, actually, as Dicker nearly spun out. Tyler Vermack, back in a green flag conditions, leads over Patrick Leger. Ian McGowan makes third at this time. Zolt Beefgarner in a close 4 from behind. Out wide there, that is Nick Lamming. Onto the gravel off of turn 7. Looks to rejoin just up and alongside that of Hart and Rod on the run up through to turn 9. Ben Hart holds his ground now, moving up in towards 7th place. Actually, 8th place, my mistake there. Elias DeVos moves to 7th. Number 61 looking for a move there. Bumps onto the number 40. Tyler Vermack leads over Patrick Leger, Ian McGowan. Oh, in the background there, that's George Todd turnaround. At the RACC chicane, even more bedlam erupting here on track after what was a disastrous start to race 2. Having a look up at the head of the field there, I believe it was contact from behind from the 17th of Donkin. Looking there, and in the background, yes, the number 17 collects himself on the rear, looking their rear left quarter. We are actually given some information, rather startling information at that, over the incident that presided over the start of today's race that supposedly was caused by a straight line. What that means in layman's terms is someone has kept the throttle in and basically barged their way through the crowd, recklessly so. It's a deliberate ramming tactic. That is quite concerning to see. You see ongoing fight then. Brooklyn Donkin versus Elias DeVos. Casualties take hold then. Very early into the pits is Luca Tamburini. ITAM Racing Porsche now on his way back out from 23rd. Already down 1 car with the exit there of Joseph Reyes, who I'm told now may have been the one that caused that incident and is already admitting fault, but not admitting if it was intentional or not. I would probably say from his testimony it's unlikely that it was deliberate and was a case where he just completely dodged the braking zone. It does happen, and it's not particularly easy to defend oneself, and I'm not playing devil's advocate. And that was just a failure of judgment, so very likely a case for there to be substantial penalties on his way. But I think that does dilute the waters here on the suggestion that it was an intentional wreck, more so just a major accident. It was negligence in that sense. You see here the number 9 gaining on the number 8. And this is exactly what Vermack wants. He wants to be in the lead of this race, but this is the worst place for it. Going for the inside goes Leger. Can he hold the ground? He's deep through turn 1. On the runoff into turn 2. Over the curbs, they're so nearly into the wall, and that is going to give easy advantage over to Ian McGowan up to 2nd. McLaren 1-2. Meanwhile, we see for the number 59, 4th place and closing in on that of Patrick Leger. It has been a disaster for the Dutchman here. Started at the head of the field. Was not expecting such a brisk start from the McLaren of Tyler Vermack. Few ever do here from the McLarens. They're not often one-sided for the fastest of starts. In the right hands, the Ford can be an absolute missile, but that has really taken him by surprise. Despite the fact that Leger holds the fastest lap here 5 minutes into race 2, he finds himself astray of the top 2. He's in 3rd. Looking further down the line here to see where ongoing fights exist. George Todd way down the order here after being turned down at the RACC chicane. Finds himself facing off against both up in front of him, Carlos Dish and Ben Hart. Then behind him, Willow Taylor and Pastor Maldonado. In turn, is fighting with Jose Rivera. And there was a sizable accident there at turn 1. You see for John O'Driscoll. And this is still quite the astonishing one. Of course, definitely having leveraged quite a bit of good luck there in that opening lap incident. He was the one to witness all of that play out in front of him. And alongside with Kieran Rod, these two have carved the line up through the field, having both of them started towards the back of this grid. That'll be the same story into race 3. So, mighty impressive indeed when one considers their performance thus far, as they continue to fight for position. The original back row bandits, Kieran Rod, otherwise known as the Blue Frog over on VSR, and John O'Driscoll, otherwise known as Regent. These two, we have seen them for multiple seasons now, as O'Driscoll gets the leg up there on Rod, in towards turn 1, I should say, for 7th place. Nice, neat and tidy between the 420 and the 61. Old comrades then. Multiple seasons of history between these two, having inadvertently worked together to make their way up through the field. Now find both of themselves components of the top 10. Looking back up into that top 3 here to see the fight for the rookies lead, Leger v McGowan. Two drivers we've grown very accustomed to over on Fats GT through our coverage of Season 10 and now in a Season 11 on our second season of coverage with the folks at Fats GT in their GT3 Championship. We've seen both McGowan and Leger pushed to the limit, both during that time and today, as it would appear. Frayed tensions in the top 10 at the moment as these two look to clash heads for the lead of the rookies division. Vermac now nearly a full second in the lead over the number 9 Mustang. It's worth noting for Leger having retaken second place from McGowan. It was at one point during the early parts of this race here in race 2, a McLaren 1-2 lead. Beefgartner 4th, Donkin 5th. In terms of the closest fights on track, we are seeing plenty among them to comment upon. We see at the moment Taylor v Hart could be one on the cards here. Running out wide though, Willow Taylor. Behind them, Maldonado and Rivera. Another close fight here. Dwevetti versus Dicker. Side by side off the exit of turn 10 into turn 11. Dicker holds ground. Beefgartner losing distance from McGowan at this time, but he's going to start reeling a lot of that back in on the opening straight. Was just over 8 tenths away. Into the pit lane goes O'Driscoll. So a few minutes before the midway there for the 420, playing things a little bit more traditionally, having such a solid start. Just a word in there from race control. Due to the reset, we're about 30 to 40 minutes behind schedule. Not great, all things considered, but the alternative was the race never being ran. We do note, though, Cas van Velten, who had not long ago been in Spa, I'm told, sadly won't be able to join us for the rest of this round of the championship, too exhausted from a trip over to Belgium. See Nick Lamming looking to fight here with Alan Alexander, or I suppose more the other way around, Alexander looking to fight with Lamming. And in the time since that disconnect, you've got to appreciate the ingenuity of the Euro Titans engineers, having been able to take that Bentley and completely respray it. And this is a rather curious one, because normally we see the pink Union Jack on him there, and it's been somewhat of an iconic livery forged out from the 315, using, of course, the Bentley Motorsports livery in a Euro Titans themed recolor, but the green is certainly growing on me here. I'm not entirely sure why. Very appealing shade of green. Less on the conversation about colours and more onto the current fight for third place. As now over a second away is Beefgartner from McGowan. You can see they're only, by looks of it, about 6, maybe 7 car lengths away from one another at this time, heading down through to turn 1. Lamming into the pit lane as the latest to run into the pits just before the midway on race 2. Closest among the fights still rages on here as Willow Taylor gains ground over Ben Hart. Behind them, we see for Jose Rivera and Ian Skeen, with Skeen now ahead of Rivera. This is quite remarkable stuff to see here. Skeen, who also, like Rod and O'Driscoll, started towards the back of the field. The same story for Taylor. We're seeing multiple drivers clashing heads with the rest of the field, carving their way back up through the order. With Lamming in the pit lane, they'll see an extra position on the cards here. We see Ben Hart versus Ian Skeen. Skeen on the inside into Repsol. Hart holding the outside, one of the 5-star Academy drivers. Trying to hold off on the outside. The door's wide enough open for Jose Rivera to put it nearly 3 abreast on the run in towards Sayat.
We are at the halfway mark, still a long way to go.
The 40 holds ground off the 20, makes it a very awkward run off the exit of turn 5. Rivera falls in behind Hart. Skeen now up to 12th. So we're halfway through here in race 2. Looking up at the head of the field, Leger has closed ground in dramatically so to Tyler Vermaak. Vermaak, who already now claimed on his 9th career win, could be seeing in the next 9.5 minutes the opportunity to go double figures and the second ever driver to do so in the history of the Sunday League, the first of which being 2-time champion Melvin Milliston. Todd v. Alexander on the cards at the moment. Up and around the RACC chicane, David and Goliath. Bentley versus Ferrari, and you can really get a scope on the size difference there between the 296 and the Continental. It's like parking a Pedalo next to a Nimitz-class aircraft carrier. The size is quite broadly different. Going for the inside, though, goes the number 12. Can he hold the ground through turn 1? The 315 looking to give it the long run. It's contact between the pair of them. They're sorting themselves out, as it would appear, sorting it out by themselves at turns 1, 2, and 3. Oh, but that could be more damage than meets the eye there for the 315, because that back end came dramatically loose at Renault corner into Repsol. He's going to stick this one on the inside, trying to get his elbows out, but he is setting himself up for a switchback. But if the number 12 commits a little too late to that inside run, he could spin the 315 out again. You can really see using the size to his advantage here in the defense of 8th place. Alan Alexander is not taking no for an answer here. The 315, like many around him, have had to carve their way up through this order today after the rerun of qualifying up through turn 7 through to turn 8 up to turn 9 in a moment's time. Super close racing between these two. Up and around Kamsa at turn 9. The number 12 looking to have the better run. It's worth noting up at the front of the field here, a now 3-way fight for the race lead between both leading rookies and Tyler Vermaak at the head of the field for 5-star Esports. Looking here, the number 12 lunges for the inside at Lakaiha. But that gives the 315 a much easier route to follow through. Joins right up on the nose of the Audi of, pardon me there, Carlos Dish. Through turn 12. It is getting razor thin between these drivers. Having a quick glance here at the order to see from Leger's point of view. In that last lap, about 3/10 off on pace. And actually was only a few thousandths slower than McGowan behind. So he does find himself in a closing clamp here between the two McLarens on the podium. He knows the straight lines is where neither of those two can really hold much a candle. Acceleration is one thing. But this is a broadly different kettle of fish when it comes to straight line speed. Heading up towards Sayat corner, you can see he is not backing down on the opportunity to retake the race lead, and we're closing in on just under 7 minutes of racing left to go. This is really, I would still say, any man's game for the race win. Race 1 saw it go to Tyler Vermaak, but I would say it's not so easily written for these 3 drivers. 2 McLarens versus a Ford, and if any of them slip up in the proceeds here, that will immediately open the doors to TSRC Esports and Euro Titans, with Zolt Beefgarner and Brooklyn Donkin rounding out the top 5. Having a glance on board here, though, to Alan Alexander's point of view in a continued 3-way split, and this has to be one of the greatest fights here in race 2. Going to catch on board with the Bentley of Alan Alexander, defending away 8th place from George Todd and his own teammate, Carlos Dish. Looking here, Todd's going to be looking for the inside up at Lakaiha. This could get ugly. Down at turn 10, the 315 gives him the room, but his otherwise quite gentlemanly conduct has opened himself up for a move as Carlos Dish gets up and ahead there of George Todd. By and large, one of the greatest fights we've seen here in race 2 so far. We still have 6 minutes left to go. Everyone on the grid so abstinent to want to get into the pit lane. 323 is out of this race. We've got confirmation there running out wide at Repsol. Sadly, the end of the road there for Maldonado. In race 2, diving to the pit lane goes Carlos Dish. George Todd, by looks of it, stays out. So too does Alan Alexander. Putting a temporary halt on their fight. Having a look up back at the head of the field here for the fight of the race. Lead on board with Patrick Leger currently leading the rookie, so we'll go consecutive on rookies wins if he stays where he is right now, but he sets his sights on the head of that table, really. Looking to go for an overall race win to become the next driver to do so after, I believe, 18 other drivers having done so over the course of this season, with the latest being Jared Vermeulen in Donington Park. And I would point out there, so there was a bit of a typo. He would be the 20th driver, as 19 different winners after Vermeulen. Having just done a quick recount of that one. 3-2-3 and the 40 now in the pit lane. The 3-2-3, obviously, Maldonado's session is over now, having been towed to the pit lane. The question still lingers among these three at the moment, all fighting for a chance of that race win. For McGowan, looking at his possibility of a first race win overall. As for Leger, same story. For Vermac, it's the chances to go double figures for career wins, going for his 10th in the Sunday League. In behind them, also looking for their opportunity out of first, Beefgartner and Donkin. Going to the pit lane by the looks of it there was McGowan. Leaves these two out by their lonesome, but this could be the axiom point for their rivalry on track. Side by side on the run down the opening straight. 5.4 litres doing the talking now as Ford retakes the lead. Patrick Leger over Tyler Vermac. They still have the pit lane to contest with. 4 minutes left to go. Something has got to give in this rivalry. The number 9 now leads once more here in Barcelona. The number 8 right on his tail out through the L chicane. Through Renault corner, turn 3. Lingering on the horizon there are two major overtaking spots at turns 4 and 5 in unison. At Repsol and Seat, the sun's starting to dim yonder the horizon. 7:23 p.m. local here in Barcelona. Down through to Seat corner. Leger's got the cards here to become the 20th ever unique driver to win in the NLRL Sunday League. On its 66th race. After race number 65 in race 1 of 3 today, gave it to Tyler Vermac. Race number 66 could go to Patrick Leger, but he has to time this pit run to absolute perfection. He either needs to force Vermac to the pit lane, or he needs to time it up to be exactly the same. The odds could not be higher for him here, and as he runs up into traffic, that's Yasser Cardoso, or Yasser Cardoso, I should say, the 995. You see he's giving him the lights there. He's hurrying him to one side. Get out of my way. I have a race to win, says that of Leger. Heading up towards Eurocar as Cardoso filters in behind both him and Tyler Vermac. Up through to the RACC chicane. Flavio Casanella brings out the yellow flags down at turn 4, but our eyes are still glued to the screen here. Vermac's into the pit lane, so Leger has this opportunity now as we brace to the penultimate lap of racing in Barcelona for the chances of a first ever race win overall. He's taken rookies wins, no doubt there. Leger does find himself facing down the chances to become the 20th unique name on the winners roster. After Jared Vermeulen became the 19th in Donington last weekend, we could be facing down a brand new race winner, but we still have 2 minutes left to play for. In the pit lane then goes Vermac, DeVos, Rod and Alexander. That does give Beefgartner and McGowan, you can see on screen at the moment, the chances to return to a possible podium as it stands right now. Vermac could be the one that changes the chances there, off the jacks immediately and straight towards the pit exit. You can see advantageous spot in the paddock. So Beefgartner looking at the possibility, yes, of 3rd. McGowan now to 4th. And they'll have, by the looks of it, one more lap to play with today as they cross the line. But it still rests, I would say, dangerously on the shoulders here of Patrick Leger. This in-lap has to be the best he can deliver, because this will ultimately decide, does he take home the race win on race 2? I'd say for all intents and purposes, it has definitely been worth the long haul of getting back into racing here after what has been, I would say, a bit of a troubled restart to round 6, because it has delivered us quite the spot of action here in Barcelona. We see from behind Sergio Belda side by side with Flavio Casanella, the two on separate lengths of the race in towards turn 1. Belda, who I believe was among the top 10 at the end of last race, finds himself still in the top 15, so a silver lining to be found there. Beefgartner v McGowan for the podium. Leger, it's got to be in this lap, surely. I believe it depends if his time is across the... If his pit lane marker is across the timing line. Into the pits goes Leger. Vermack's on his way to turn 10. This has got to be absolutely razor precise. There you can see it across the timing line. So he's got this one in the bag here. There will be one more lap coming up, but he's still yet to have come to a stop here. This is going to be nail-bitingly close between the two. It's worth noting Vermack had a much more advantageous spot in the pit lane. The number 9 comes to a halt. He's short to be off his jacks here. And off goes the number 9, but it's a bit of a slow start. We see Reyes now being forced to the pit lanes. That could be the end of his time here in Barcelona. Vermack rounds Catalonia corner. It is going to be so close between these two. The pit limiter line awaits, but it could be too late here. Heading his way up the opening straight, the number 8 in pursuit over Patrick Leger. He's off the limiters. You can hear the sound of the approaching McLaren. Side by side, and you can see it there in the foreground. It's going to be all the way down through to turn 1. Vermack's got more momentum. And by looks of it, trying to go up into the lead, does have it. Number 8 retakes the lead here, but he faces off against Patrick Leger for one last lap. Zolt Beefgarner holds ground from Ian McGowan. Brooklyn Donkin rounds out the top 5 with John O'Driscoll in 6th from the back of the pit lane. Oh, the pit lane of the grid. Same story for Kieran Rodd, though, 7th. Ahead of Carlos Deesh in 8th, George Todd in 9th, Alan Alexander rounds out the top 10. Ultimately, Todd came out on top in that fight. Pit lane run may have been what broke the camel's back here on the performance of the number 9, because it looks to be the case that beneficial spot in the paddock has paid heavy dividends for Tyler Vermack's possibility of a 10th career win here in the Sunday League. He's got one more lap to contest with, going to catch on board then with either side of which here in the current fighting at the head of the field. We do note that the number 77 brings out the yellow flags. That's for Casanella. Once again, we see the ongoing fight here. Hart v Rivera will catch on with them, though, at the checkered flag. Looking to catch on board with the leading McLaren at this time. On board with Tyler Vermack. This could be on the chances of one more win here. We see down through Lakaiha. We saw what was definitely the anticipation of a lunge from Patrick Leger. But I think it might be just a little too late here for the number 9, where he'll take home another Rookies Division win. So close, yet so far away on the chances of a possible overall race win. He still has one more shot at this, but as we make our way down through the RACC chicane, the checkered flag looms round turn 16 at Catalonia corner. It's going to be career win number 10 for Tyler Vermack. After a bit of a delay between race 1 and 2, at the end of race 2, Vermack wins in Catalonia. So close there to the end of the line between these two. A brilliant rivalry in the Genesis phase here between Leger and Vermack here in Barcelona. 2 consecutive wins in Barcelona so far for Vermack, back on a streak of winning performances, and his career 10th after race 2. Leger wins in the rookies, Beefgarner in 3rd, Donkin 4th, O'Driscoll 5th, Deesh in 6th, Rod 7th, Todd 8th, Alexander 9th, Lamming in 10th, Skeen in 11th, Belder in 12th, DeVos 13th, Hart 14th, Rivera in 15th. By looks of it at the moment, Taylor 16th, Tamburini looking at 17th. They're sliding his way out through turn 12. We'll see though down to the line here. Ian Skeen and Elias DeVos. What on earth is going on here? He's down to the line. That's going to give it over to Ben Hart. Goes up to 12th. So I'm not sure what these two were playing at here, right at the checkered flag. But as it stands to be the case, that has given Ben Hart the opportunity for 12th and for Jose Rivera to 13th. Skeen to 14th, DeVos 15th, Taylor 16th, Tamburini to 17th place. Duvetti to 18th, and Cardoso looking at the possibility of 19th place. A very bizarre end then to race 2, and a bit of a delay. The 64 ran out of fuel in the chicane and left. They would have been 5th. So that was for... Oh, that was for McGowan. So at the end of this race, we see then Tyler Vermack, career win number 10 from the number 8. Patrick Leger on another Rookies Division win. Zolt Beefgarner takes up a triumphant podium there for TSRC Esports. You can see the final result coming in there. Donkin 4th, O'Driscoll 5th, Deesh 6th, Rod 7th, Todd 8th, Alexander 9th, and Lamming in 10th. Belter in 11th, Rivera 12th, Skeen 13th, DeVos 14th, Taylor 15th, Tamburini 16th, Duvetti 17th, Cardoso 18th, Dicker 19th, and Reyes in 20th. No current news on the whereabouts then of Ian McGowan, who supposedly ran out of fuel. As we come to the end of race 2, only one more race remains then. Race 3 coming up around the corner for the 3rd and last time here in Barcelona to round out what has been a bit of a longer than expected run on Season 6, Round 6 of the NLRL Sunday League, powered by TRTN. As it stands to be the case then, 2 more wins in a row here for Tyler Vermaak, mirroring his progress in Indianapolis. But it's worth noting, when one thinks back to Indianapolis, who was the one that took home race win number 3 of that event? It was Alan Alexander, of all people. Bear in mind, he started from the back with Bentley. Now, I'm not saying there's a pattern recognition thing going on here. Keep an eye to those back row runners, but I would say it's between them and Leger. Leger still holds commanding position on every race start, where this one didn't size up to be in his favour like it did in race 1. He ultimately found his way back into the swing of things here, taking control of the race lead once more. Ultimately, Vermaak's undercut strategy played heavy roles in him securing race win number 10 of the NLRL Sunday League, but I would still say third time could very well be the charm here for Patrick Leger. We do wait then for one last form of the grid. 20 cars at the end of race 2, and what started as a grid of 24 has been quite the troubled weekend here in Barcelona. Wait for the final results to reel in there. I believe we did have them, but we do just wait and see. And a rather awkwardly long session break there as we wait for the start of race 3. And taking a look then, just before we do at the road ahead on the calendar, the next round coming up on the NLRL Sunday League, and we'll be bringing this back up again after race 3, will be on the 5th of July. We head to the Autodromo Internazionale Enzo Edino Ferrari, otherwise Imola, at round 7 of the championship, back onto the sprint and feature format we were supposed to have seen in Donington Park, which has now later been classified as an accidental endurance race following a mix-up with race control and the session structure for round 5. Hopefully, the troubles of the last 3 weeks, including this one, are at an end, heading past round 7. Fingers crossed for that one, as we wait for the grid to form up on race 3 today here on round 6 of season 6 of the NLRL Sunday League. It will be once again Patrick Leger back up to that leading position. We'll be waiting then. So I'm not entirely sure what the session marker was. If it's been set to the same one as the Nürburgring, we could be here quite a while, folks. I suppose whilst we've got the opportunity, one interesting part about this circuit, of course, we mentioned it was a former part of the World Rallycross Championship from 2015 to 2022. A heavily augmented version of Sector 3 that ran in the opposite direction to what it's normally run as. You can actually find that layout over on Dirt Rally 2.0 of all games. A very strange little structure. I'm not sure how many other games that appears in, but there we see the final results. Okay, it's a better late than never. We do see the final confirmation of results there, 20th for Ian McGowan, and the rest of the results are as follows there, with Vermaak taking career win number 10. Patrick Leger takes the win in the rookies. John O'Driscoll revels in a top 5 from the back of the field. That is a very solid result indeed. So as we wait then for the formation of the grid for race number 3. Now, this should wrap up fairly quickly now. You know, fingers crossed, everything hoping they're in. As we wait for 20 more minutes of racing here in Barcelona. We do apologise for the slightly sluggish transitions between the races here. I mean, from race 1 to race 2 wasn't too bad. Was not too bad. I will point that one out. And then, obviously, it disconnected. So, you know, you can't win them all. One of the closest finishing margins there at the end of race 2, 169 thousandths of a second, as we now form up onto race number 3. Leger, of course, back on pole position with Vermaak in 2nd, Todd 3rd, Beefgartner 4th, and Donkin in 5th, Deesh in 6th, Vos in 7th, with Lamming in 8th, Dicker 9th, and Rivera rounding out the top 10, now promoted from 11th. Sergio Belda in 11th place with Luca Tamburini in 12th, Cardoso in 13th, Frutoveri in 14th, O'Driscoll 15th, Taylor in 16th, Rod 17th, Alexander 18th, Skeen 19th, and Reyes rounds out the top 20. Now starting from the back. Down some size there on the grid. What started today is 25, then into race 2 was 24, now on race 3 is 20. Barcelona has been a brutal one. With just under 3 minutes left to go before the start of the formation lap for Patrick Leger, the importance of this race could not be illustrated any higher. 2 unsuccessful attempts to take the overall race win. Of course, he will still run away with 2 division wins, which I'm sure in his context won't be much to scoff at all, as it will boost him up through the order in the rookies standings, especially considering he's been routinely outscoring the current rookies championship leader of Elias de Vos. In Leger's case, his ambitions have been very clearly outlined at an overall race win, that of which he has attempted twice here and has fell short to Tyler Vermaak for 2 consecutive wins. But it is worth considering, as we mentioned before, in our last sprint race this season was over in Indianapolis, the third of which of those races went on to be won by Alan Alexander, who currently starts down in 18th, actually not too dissimilar to where he started in Indianapolis. So, I don't know, keep an eye for that 315. But I'll also keep a very close eye on the 420, having gone from what was much further down the grid on race 2, then to 5th. Now starts in 15th place. So really not too far at all, about arm's distance there from the top 10, of which he's more than likely to see by the end of at least race 3, lap 2. A minute and 20 left to go. We'll be catching on board once again for the 3rd and final formation lap of the session with Patrick Leger. For 20 more minutes here in Barcelona. Now, the temperature has started to climb down from what was 40 degrees on track, 36 ambient, now to what appears to be 34 across the board. So, albeit not a significant drop in temperature, but one that is noticeable as we head into the evening hours here in Spain. Hoping then no more incidents down at turn 1. We're 20 seconds from catching on board here with Patrick Leger. Will take us away into one more formation lap here in Barcelona.
Seconds.
On board with Patrick Leger one last time here on the formation lap. One more shot to make amends for that possibility of a race win. Can he find it here? Will it be 3rd time's the charm, or will Vermaak be seeing a clean sweep in Barcelona? Only time will reveal the answers. On board at the moment then with the number 9. Take us away into one more formation lap here at the Circuit de Barcelona, Catalunya. 20 cars in attendance, and as far as things currently show, no drivers starting from the pit lane. Of course, that could still change as we get on in towards the formation lap here. Pulling away goes Leger. Starting off slowly between the leading pair. They know the rest of the grid is actually trying to drag them down and slow them up from getting too far up from the rest of the field, and that's ultimately going to be weighing heavy on them because it's going to mean less temperature built in the tires, meaning less grip on the start, meaning more chances that the trailing rows can attack for a leading position. We see right towards the back of the field then Joseph Reyes will be looking to go under the knife here with the race control team following race 2 start. Looking to redeem himself on race 3, starts deliberately from the back in the number 58 VEC Esports car. Happens to the best of them, though. We've seen many drivers, experienced and inexperienced, go into the same kind of dilemma here, where he just ends up missing the braking zone. It is a split-second error that's happened to near enough every driver on this pit lane. Not on this pit lane, on this grid, I should say. At least once in their careers. Now, we can't really attest to some of the newer drivers as we just don't have the information, but we've seen it plenty of times with many, many other drivers. Going back on board then to Patrick Leger. And something we didn't know earlier in the stream, but obviously is quite readily apparent. This is a brand new livery for the number 9. And I would say quite a snazzy one indeed. The black and orange, as it were. It does fit quite nicely on the Ford. Sort of giving off the vibes of... I can't remember exactly the species, but you know, like the stereotypical tarantula. You know, I think it's the Chilean red-knee tarantula, the one that's black with the little rings on its knees. It reminds me of that for some reason. I think it's just the black and orange. I'm not going to pull up a picture of that because I'm terrified of spiders, but you know exactly which one I'm talking about. Alternatively, Magma, you know, Genesis Magma Racing. Or perhaps some of the United Autosports McLarens, you know, maybe if we don't want to think about bugs too much. Down through to turn 10. With bated breath then, heavy anticipation for this third and final clash here in Barcelona for the end of round 6 of the championship here on season 6 of the NLRL Sunday League, powered by TRTN. Beginning the formation process here at the RACC chicane. Slowing up is the possible race leader to be here down through turn 1. Of course, missed out on that chance in race 2, but third time's the charm for Patrick Leger, or so we're led to believe. Down towards the line we go from the exit of turn 15 of the RACC chicane. 20 minutes against the clock here for one last go. And what has been a troublesome weekend for many here at the Circuit de Barcelona, Catalunya. 20 cars in attendance, 10 on either side of which down to the line here. One last shot. Season 6, round 6 of the NLRL Sunday League. About to get underway on race 3. Without further ado, down to the line, we are green and racing one last time here in Catalonia, and a great start for the front row, but who will prevail on the run down towards turn 1? We can already see getting the leg up there is Tyler Vermaak, but starting to be squeezed over to the left-hand side of the track by that of Patrick Leger. Right behind them, you can see George Todd and Brooklyn Donkin charging up from behind. It's 3 abreast in towards turn 1 from the outside. That's the 599 of Zolt Beefgartner of TSRC Esports out wide at turns 1 and 2. I never thought we'd see it 3 abreast for the run through turn 1. Leger leads over Tyler Vermaak. George Todd in third. Beefgartner fourth. Off of what was an exhilarating start there between those four. Down through to Repsol. Vermaak looking for the inside here. He'll have the outside down at Sayat. As these two continue to clash on field here, going for the inside at Sayat corner. Leger trying to cover himself off from a switchback of Tyler Vermaak. Squeezes him all the way to the right-hand side. George Todd in pursuit from third. From behind, we see Carlos Dish in the top 5, up and ahead of Brooklyn Donkin. A great start by many here, and fewer incidents than the last 2 races put together off of the first lap here in Barcelona. But let's not hold our breath too suddenly on the run down through Kamsa. Turn 9, up over the crest in towards run of Lakaiha. This is where things could suddenly start to go quite wrong. We see holding the inside, trying to cover himself up, but he is setting himself up for a switchback, but he's just sort of there, parking the bus off the apex. The number 9. of Patrick Leger. You can see this is a much more deliberate effort, blocking off any possible advance from the number 8 behind. A very elbows-out approach to defense in race 3. Right behind them we see here for George Todd, holding up 3rd place at this time. He was taken out in race 2 at this section, but finds himself much more fortunate on the run out of lap 1. 599 in hot pursuit, though. Zolt Beefgartner, keep an eye on this Lexus, because like the Mustang, it is an absolute bullet. Behind them, the Audi of Carlos Dish, Brooklyn Donkin in 6th. John O'Driscoll is in 7th place off the race start. We see Nick Lamming in 8th. Elias DeVos toe-to-toe with Sam Dicker. This is for Division 3rd in the rookies. Up on the inside, in towards turn 1. DeVos holds ground from Dicker. Behind them, Tamburini and the 315 of Alan Alexander contest 11th. Tamburini, who I should clarify, is on debut to this grid over the course of this triple header. Now toe-to-toe between both Alexander and Ian Skeen, both of which having started towards the back of the field. Having a look back up at the front, Vermaak falling in behind Leger at this time. A great start from that number 9, but he knows where he's at his most vulnerable is under strategy today, so something has got to change, and change fast for Leger, because he can't afford a rerun of race 2. George Todd starting to distance himself from Zolt Beefgartner. He knows he's at his most vulnerable on the straights. The Ferrari by no means a slouch. In fact, George Todd came to prove that in the last couple of seasons, the Ferrari, if we take a look at straight line speed, is actually among the faster cars in circulation. This was data taken from season 5. So in his hands, that Ferrari is no slouch, but when you've got a Lexus right in the slipstream on you, one of the fastest cars in circulation, it is not exactly easy to continue to present that case. Carlos Dish holds 5th from Brooklyn Donkin. John O'Driscoll in pursuits. Then Nick Lamming holds 2nd in the rookies. Ahead of Elias DeVos, Sam Dicker behind. Alan Alexander behind them. Ian Skeen now up and ahead of Luca Tamburini. You can see there side by side of the exit of the RACC chicane. Meanwhile, Vermaak is in the slipstream here on Leger. Behind them, George Todd trying to cut some slipstream away from Zolt Beefgarner. He is in turn in the slipstream off of Tyler Vermaak, so getting closer to the chances for a leading fight. Yasser Cardoso picks up a drive-through penalty for track limits. The 995 could be diving to the pit lane. No, he does not, as a matter of fact, and has 2 more laps to serve as he falls all the way down to 20th. Vermaak still in pursuit here, 2 tenths away, just nearly 3 tenths before the run into Repsol. You could see the dive in through turn 4, just how much more rotation that McLaren has over the Mustang. The hammer versus the scalpel here when it comes to the talks of Ford and McLaren on this grid. Ferrari not too far away either. We are looking at the pretenses here of what could be upwards of a 5-car split for control of the race leaders. Not too far away either from these 3 is Zolt Beefgarner and Carlos Deech. These 2 separate by less than half a second. Then behind them, it is worth noting also Donkin and O'Driscoll. So this is actually upwards of 7 cars that could crunch into this fight for the lead. So a lot of pressure here on the number 9. Through turn 10 we go. Leger, so far so good in the first 5 minutes of racing on race 3 today. Vermaak still stern for an attack here for the race lead. But is having to play things a lot more patiently, knowing this is where tensions are at their most frayed. He's already on his 10th career win. Looking at aspirations of 11th. But he can't get too cocky here. He is sandwiched in between 2 very capable drivers at his front and rear. Leger in front. And we see right now in interception range, George Todd. He's been quite the wizard with that Ferrari, having brought it up to a staggering 174 mile an hour top speed in Monza, which we'll see later on this season. In the pit lane goes O'Driscoll and DeVos, both of which into the paddock now. Joining them is Sergio Belda. So very early pit stops we're seeing here on race 3. Drivers looking for a more unorthodox strategy. Now, not impossible to see good results come of that. If you remember significantly some time ago, I believe Valencia doubleheader, LeBay, in his time in this series, did perform such an action as that. I think it was on the 2nd lap, so right about where we're seeing for some of these drivers. And he ended up bringing himself closer to what was a podium than where he actually started from in that race. So it was a great salvaging drive from the 119. Of course, the Season 1 champion of the NLRL Sunday League. We see here with Sam Dicker, caught between Skeen and Alexander. Not an easy place for anyone to be. Yellow flags are out for what looks to be here the 995. That's Yasser Cardoso, stranded off of turn 1. Actually, by looks of it, facing the wrong way. Could that be the end of the road here for the Brazilian talent on debut to the Sunday League here in race 3? Likely so. No confirmation yet of a return to the pit lane. We'll update you later on, as we just see there, number 12 on the inside on the number 8, who was attempting a move on the number 9. Back in a green flag conditions as now George Todd sticks his head in the middle of this fight. The number 12 looking to step into 2nd. And this has actually invited in quite a hefty bit of distance now between Vermaak and Leger. We are aware of the discrepancies in pronunciation of Leger's surname. I believe it is, and you have to forgive me for our Dutch viewers at home, because I cannot for the life of me do the soft G's in the Dutch language, but I think it's Leger, almost like Laker, but a very soft K. I think it stands for army, and that's what it is, roughly, the word army. Not very good at Dutch, though. That's why we defaulted to Leger. Our apologies, though, to Patrick Laker, if that is not how he wished to have his surname pronounced. Do write in, of course, if you do have any complaints surrounding that one. But regardless, whether you call him Laker or Leger, this one is leading by 8 tenths at that as well, over Vermaak in 2nd. Zolt Beefgarner in 3rd. Carlos Deech in 4th. Brooklyn Donkin in behind there to round out the top 5. George Todd on exit of the pits then. A curious strategy indeed from the Mexican talent. But Malwar Racing, a very elbows out approach just before his run to the pit lane. Definitely put quite the chill in the spine on Tyler Vermaak out of Lakaya. Now, as he exits the pits, 16th at this time, ahead of John O'Driscoll by about half a corner here at turn 3. These two will be slowly but surely creeping their way back up through the field as we enter the second half of racing here on race 3. But Leger now has one of the greatest advantages he's seen all weekend long. Nearly a full second on Tyler Vermaak. This is going to be quite a significant moment for him. Off the exit here of Catalunya corner. And again, he's just a little too far away to be finding much of an advantage on that opening straight. We do get now confirmation Cardoso is sadly out of this race, bringing the tally of drivers down to 19 vehicles left in race 3. Latest into the pit lane, Dicker and Tamburini. The 222 and the 813 now both in. Vermac by just under 9/10 here on Patrick Leger. This is really quite the spectacle to behold. Could this finally be the one race he's been searching for all this time here? Leger, after multiple, and should I say consecutive rookies victories this round alone, could finally be looking to take a stab at the biggest prize of all, an overall race. We're to become the second driver this season to do so from the rookies category after Jared Vermeulen in Donington last weekend. We could be on a series of firsts here. Carlos Deech finds himself sandwiched in between two here for the fight of third place. Zolt Beefgartner up in front of him, behind him Brooklyn Donkin. Halfway through on race 3, we can see they're holding the inside was the 599, but does he set himself up for a switchback from the 54? We do see better exit of the two. Actually, better exit of the 3 there was for Donkin. Was glued to that racing line. Dicker now having left the pit lane down in 18th at this time here on race 3. Looking to catch on board if we can here with the one in the middle, the Audi. If we can go to find him at this time, number 54, Carlos Deech. Squished in between both teammate and rival alike. TSRC versus Euro Titans for control of the podium up in front. Leger notably faster by nearly half a second on Tyler Vermac. There is some promising signs to follow the possibility of Leger's first win here in the Sunday League, but of course strategy was his Achilles heel in race 2. We'll see if that comes back to bite him today. Will it be a case with the number 9 trying to learn from Vermac? Is going to attempt an undercut strategy on the number 8. Only time has the answers to that one. Into the pit lane at the moment. More cars coming in as we continue to watch here with Carlos Deech having a glance onto the wider map to see in the pit lane goes Jose Rivera and Parth Dwivedi. Meanwhile, for the 54, he has his sights firmly affixed on the chances of third place, so continuing to stay on board here with the number 54 of Carlos Deech, looking here to fight for third place. Not far behind them then, and possibly to inherit this third place if things go sour, is that of Brooklyn Donkin. Last season's rookies champion leads the championship at this time, but after consecutive victories for Tyler Vermac, on what entered today as a 20-point gap between these two, could see Vermac into the championship lead, heading in towards Imola at round 7, looking for the opportunity of a late apex here to put himself front to rear on the 599, falls short of it at turn 11, now through to turn 12. 8 minutes left to go. We're keeping an eye up ahead of us to see what the strategy's looking like for the 9 and the 8 at the head of the field. Through to Eurocar at turn 13. You can see just up the road is both leading drivers. No current indication. I think neither of them have actually gone in, so staying out onto lap. Looking here, number 7. Meanwhile, watching from Carlos Deech's point of view, he is actually rather dangerously close to getting intercepted by his own teammate. There could be the idea floated here for a fight of 4th place, but that really rests on the ambitions of Brooklyn Donkin on how much he's willing to fight with his own teammates. You've seen, though, for Donkin, this has really been the opportunity for him to get his elbows out, to prove himself with the Ford. Now, we already know this quite clearly. We've seen multiple instances where Brooklyn Donkin has driven for Ford and it haven't been one of the better performances he's had from any one manufacturer. So the transition from BMW to Ford should yield, in theory, coming into this second half of the championship, more results like this, where he is among that fight for podiums, among that fight in the top 5. And I think overall it's going to see him just bumped up the order a little bit further by the end of this season. As we mentioned, it's definitely indicative of this greater ambitions for challenging the championship, and I have no doubt in my mind, like many drivers on this grid, he's capable of it. It's just a few variables needed changing, and in the case of Donkin, I think it was the machine holding him back for some time. The BMW, great pick, don't get me wrong, but something was always just a little out of place for him. You can see he's much more comfortable with Ford at this time. We see they're going for third place. So we see here for Carlos Deech up and ahead now of Zolt Beefgartner. One fell swoop and one tiny mistake at turn 10 has given that one over to Carlos Dietz. You can see in his rearview mirror, Alexis RCF of TSRC Esports' Zolt Beefgarden are now infuriated with that one simple mistake to have taken away his chances of a podium at this time. 6 minutes left to go. Donkin's on the inside. Beefgarden has to hold it and dives to the pit lane. And Declan Anderson in our chat there saying, is NLRL a PC league? For the Assetto Corsa Competizione division, it's console cross-platform, so Xbox and PlayStation, but there is an iRacing division hopefully starting up later next month, if not a little later on in the year, depending on what the proceedings are on the upcoming NLRL NASCAR Cup Series. That will be on PC, fortunately, so there's that for consideration as well. But as far as ACC goes, it's consoles only at the moment. Right now, I think there is the ambition for LMU, but I think it will be waiting closer for its console release for anything like that. I'm not entirely sure what will become of the Sunday League, but we do know that for Endurance, it is definitely a case for the console Endurance series to return. We would be waiting for LMU. So I know a few people have asked questions about that before, just to add on top of that. Declan Anderson in chat saying, can I join? Yes, the sign-ups are still available. You can join in the reserve category where you'll be allowed in on the grounds that we do not hit capacity. So we saw plenty of drivers sign up from reserves today. And having a look whilst we just got the opportunity here between battles in the top 5. Some of the new drivers who have joined us today, Luca Tamburini, a driver we've seen plenty of times before. We see Jose Rivera and Path to Evedi, among others. With the silver mark drivers, they are your reserves for today. And there are often plenty of chances there. We do actually just quickly catch on board here with Dwebedi to see a fight for 18th between himself and Willow Taylor. Taylor holding ground. They've got 18th place in their hands at the moment. To reiterate some points to some points to some of the viewers in chat that have been asking the questions about, you know, is NLRL a PC league? Is there an endurance series? So the Sunday League is a sprint race series. This is sort of the bread and butter of NLRL. It's its longest running series. It was inherited from the GHR Sunday League, which ran for 8 seasons. The NLRL Sunday League has ran now for 6, giving us 14 total seasons across both branches. But we've been covering every season here on TRT, and that's a sprint racing series. We had the console endurance series and the solo multi-class endurance series that were, as the name would suggest, endurance championships. The console endurance series was inherited from the GHR Xbox Endurance Championship, of which we also covered here on TRTN back when we were known as TRR. And then you have the upcoming NLRL Cup Series, or the NLRL NASCAR Cup Series, which, as the name would suggest, is a NASCAR championship. That's coming up on iRacing, as we see now leaving the pit lane is Alan Alexander, now having hemorrhage ground to George Todd. And then we have some possibilities for some other endurance or semi-endurance related content later on in the year. But all of that is as of yet unconfirmed. There are still a few more bits and pieces in the pipeline. There is a special event coming up here for the Sunday League that will utilize some of the Cup Cars STOs and M2s and GT2s and so on and so forth. There's a special event coming up in August. If you want to sign up for that one, that's available via the sim grid for the NLRL sort of roster of events at this time, as well as the available sign-ups for the Cup Series, Sunday League, and any other events we have running at the time. So looking in at the moment, and this could be the deciding point on his fight thus far. Patrick Leger is into the pit lane. Tyler Vermack stays out. When he came into the pits, he had about 2.2 seconds worth of advantage. Could this finally be his day in the sun? Rather ironically, given the fact the sun is now setting yonder the horizon here in Barcelona. But under the stars could find our 20th new race winner. Following him in the pits then, Carlos Dietz and Brooklyn Donkin. So too is Kieran Rodd. It leaves Tyler Vermack stranded out by his lonesome to be the last driver to see the pit lane. 2 minutes left to go, and he's out wide here at Renault Corner. Vermack has really had to push himself here on race 3. It has not been the same kettle of fish of race 1 and race 2 that has seen him to his 9th and 10th career wins in the NLRL Sunday League. We could very well be on the cards to see Leger's first, and I think a lot of people in the chat at the moment may be thinking the same, because this has been a driver quite easy to root for because he's still quite new to this series, made his debut here in Season 6 to the Rookies Championship. A driver we have seen before here on TRTN over on Fats GT, and has fought quite diligently to find himself at the head of the field in both qualifying sessions during both the original quali and the rerun, of which you'll catch the trailing 2 minutes of on YouTube during the release of this Sunday League episode. right now could stand within arm's distance to be the 20th new name to win in the Sunday League. After we saw our 19th out of Jared Vermeulen. We do see in the fights now to take up since Donkin v Beefgartner ongoing at this time. We see as well O'Driscoll escaping from them with Deesh up the road from him by about what was originally 6/10. I'd say it's getting closer to about 8/10 here. George Todd not too far off the distance of Patrick Leger. It is going to be now the most important pit stop of today's event is for that of Tyler Vermack. He's very brisk into the pit lane. I believe they're just within the speed limit.
Leaders on final lap now.
And much as we saw for Leger, could this be a turn of roles here? A bit of a role reversal between the 8 and the 9. Of course, he is much closer to the pit exit than Leger was, but he's got a longer run down to it, stuck there at about 30 miles an hour. As down through the RACC chicane, Leger may be looking to do to Vermack what Vermack did to him in race 2. 10 seconds left to go. Of course, it will be one more lap. As we heard there, the race leader was on the final lap. Off the jacks goes Tyler Vermack, but he's got to face off now in a role reversal of race 2 with the oncoming number 9. Down towards turn 1, we can see leaving the pit lane is the number 8. The number 9 might just be a little too far away. Screaming up towards turn 1. You can see here, this is where it could all come down to nil between these two. Vermack stays out ahead of Leger, but Leger has tenfold the momentum. Out through turn 3, you can really start to get a semblance here of the fury boiling behind the eyes of Patrick Leger. He was so close, but it has been such a perfect run of things by Tyler Vermack. Looking at a clean sweep, but one last lap between these two to contest race number 3. Looking to go and catch on board if we can then with the Mustang pursuing the McLaren at this time. On board with the number 9, Leger in hot pursuit here. It's his last chance in Barcelona to see the chance of a race win. Through turn 7, he's going to throw absolutely everything into this drive now. On board with Leger. This is where things really could get quite ugly between these two on the run out from Kamsa in towards Lakaya. I imagine he believes he is close enough to try and go for that lunge on the inside. The question is, does he commit to it? It looks like it could be the case here in towards turn 10. Up and around between both of these drivers here. It's going to come down to the finest of margins. We originally saw one of the closest finishing margins in Sunday League history between Levi Warner and Melvin Milliston, but looking to one-up them here is Leger versus Vermack. Going to catch on board with the McLaren at the head of the field. Who comes down to the line first among the fray? Will it be the number 8? Will it be the number 9? Taking away through the RACC chicane down to the line. We're on board with the number 8 as the checkered flag couldn't come any sooner for these two drivers. Down to the line. It's going to be a drag race. Who takes it home? Will it be Vermack? Will it be Leger? It's Vermack for race win number 11. What a phenomenal finish between these three. I think that's got to be by and large the closest we've ever seen it. 122 thousandths between Patrick Leger and Tyler Vermack. All three drivers within a second front to back at the end of race 3. Leger on 3 consecutive rookies victories, but denied the biggest prize of all today. That being the overall race win, but he will fight on. George Todd to 3rd, Carlos Deesh to 4th, John O'Driscoll in the top 5, 2 times on the trot there from race 2 and race 3. Brooklyn Donkin in 6th, Zol Beefgartner in 7th, Alan Alexander in 8th, Ian Skeen 9th, and Elias DeVos rounds out the top 10. Nick Lamming in 11th, Kieran Rod in 12th, Sam Dicker in 13th, Sergio Belda in 14th, Luca Tamburini to 15th, Jose Rivera looking at the possibility of 16th. We'll see down towards the line. Rivera to 16th, Taylor to 17th, Dwevedi to 18th, Reyes to 19th. But what a finish between those two. Tyler Vermack and Patrick Leger, your 2 division winners across, I believe, all 3 races there. In your overall wins from race 1, 2, and 3 has been Tyler Vermack. In the rookies has been Patrick Leger in race 1, 2, and 3. What a race that's been here in Season 6, Round 6 of the NLRL Sunday League. I believe, looking in the interviewees chat, we will get an opportunity to chat with Patrick Leger after what has been a phenomenal triad of races. So close to an overall race win. I'm sure you'll still be delighted to see division wins across the board. That will see him plenty up the order in the Rookies Championship. Just before the end of this broadcast then, let's go to catch on board with Leger. first of our interviewees tonight after Season 6, Round 6, Patrick Leger. 3 consecutive rookies victories here in Barcelona. Patrick, it must have been quite a hair-splitter weekend for you.
Definitely. I mean, it has been an exciting weekend. I have to say qualification was better than my main races, not gonna lie. But like, it has been an amazing weekend. I am thrilled to battle the likes of Mark, who kept me honest. But also, I have a little bit of feeling that it was a little bit of wasted potential as well, because I think for all 3 races, especially the last one, I could have also gotten the win, and I did not. So I'm a little bit bummed out about that.
I'm pretty sure, I'm reviewing the data right now, but I'm pretty sure you and Vermaak now hold the record for the closest decision victory there. 122 thousandths at the end of race 3. The previous record was, I believe, in that range. I'll have to go back and check through it, but I think you may have just one up to what was over 2 seasons ago now. Melvin Milliston versus Levi Warner at Laguna Seca. So how do you feel now being in the history books, possibly?
It feels good. Only it sucks.
Are you still there? Just double checking. There's a little bit of a short out there on the microphone. Are you still with us? I believe there we might have lost connection with him. We'll just have to double check back in a moment. Apologies about the disconnect there, and we're back on with Patrick Leger. So as you were saying.
I think I'm always happy to be in the history books. Only today I'm on the wrong side of the history books. But like, I mean, we are here to make history, aren't we?
Very, very true. Well, I imagine that we could see a much more fired up performance than what we've already seen today here in Barcelona from you in the next couple of races. Your next stop's going to be over in Imola. So how are you feeling heading in towards that?
It depends how good the Mustang are over those sorts of curbs. If the Mustang is good, I'm feeling pretty confident, not gonna lie. If it is bad over those sorts of curbs, I mean, then I think I will be in for a tough time.
Well, all power to you. It's been a brilliant result for you today. 3 consecutive rookies victories. So you'll be seeing yourself plenty up through the order in the rookies standings, looking to challenge with Elias de Vos by the end of the season. So there's definitely some chances there for you for championship opportunities. But all the best of luck for you heading in towards round 7. I think this could be quite an exciting rest of the season for you.
I hope so too. And other than that, I wish you also the best of luck with the commentating. I watched a couple of races back, and I think you're doing a great job, mate.
My pleasure. Thank you very much.
Have a good one.
Take care. That was Patrick Leger in our first of 2 interviewee blocks. Next, we'll be getting on board with George Todd. So back in just a moment's time. And our second and appears to be last interview for today then, George Todd. It has been quite a series of highs and lows for you today, George. I imagine quite a fiery performance after today in Barcelona, but how's things sort of been going for you over the course of today's event, would you say?
Very good. I was very motivated to be close to the guys up front after 2 qualifies. And so I knew I had a little bit better pace with free air. So as you saw, I tried to do something different. It didn't work out. I missed for 2 laps my undercut, and I paid the price. But I'm very good with my performance. I'm very happy. What happened in race 2, I don't even understand how the Mustang hit me. But I mean, these things happen. It's racing, and that's it. But I'm very happy with my performance and with the setup of the car.
And how are you going to be feeling heading into the rest of the season? Then our next stop will take us over to the Autodromo Internazionale Enzo Dino Ferrari over at Imola. So very technical circuit coming up after today, much kind of like what we faced here in Barcelona. What's your sort of thoughts heading in towards that one?
Yeah, I think I have a good setup for Imola. I've been working on that setup for more than a year now, and the chicane and stuff. So I'm always very happy to drive the Ferrari on Italian track. So I'm waiting for Aqua Minerali to come to me, man. I'm ready.
We'll be waiting for you there as well. That's going to be an exciting rest of the season coming up around the corner, of course. Still well within the cards for you here. I believe you're still in and amongst the top 10 after today in the overall Drivers' Championship standings. And as the sole representative in this championship right now of Malwar Racing, you still, I believe, stand third in the team's championship by yourself. So quite a stand-up job from you. I think you've done remarkably well over the course of the season to hold up the honours then of Malwar Racing in the absence of the rest of your team, of which I'm told could be coming back in Season 7, if I'm not mistaken.
I hope so, man. I chat with them every time that I can to remind them that I'm by myself here. What's going on?
I did hear through the grapevine that there would be a return from quite a few of the Malwar Racing drivers. I think it's because the summer at the moment, not a lot of them are around, but I'm sold out past sort of Season 7, Season 8 is when they could be coming back in force, so you won't be lonely for much longer. But otherwise, great result from you today. We saw some fantastic fighting out of you, and all power to you, and the best of luck for the running towards round 7.
Thanks to you, man. Have a good one.
My pleasure. Take care. And so that was George Ton, the last of our 2 interviewees for today. That concludes all of our interviews here for Season 6, Round 6 of the NLRL Sunday League, powered by TRTN. A wonderful end to 3 bouts of racing here in Barcelona as the checkered flag lowers from today. What a race it has been, albeit a bit of a muddled one over the course of this weekend with the repeat qualifying session. It might be a bit of a jumbled mess to rewatch on YouTube, but we'll try and make that as smooth as possible. Looking forward into the next round of the championship. Imola around the corner on the 5th of July. Back onto the sprint and feature format for round 7. Then Bathurst the week after that. We're thoroughly looking forward to that one. 90 minutes of racing coming up at the Mount Panorama Circuit in Bathurst, New South Wales, Australia. That's round 8 of the championship. The penultimate round the week after that at the Red Bull Ring. Back on the sprint and feature format. And our last visit to the sprint format will be over on round 10 at the Autodromo Nazionale di Monza, the Temple of Speed and the eternal home of the Italian Grand Prix. Will be the last point here on Season 6 of the Sunday League. What a pleasure it's been from us here on TRTN to be back in with competition once again with the Sunday League. That's all from us here today. If you're joining us tomorrow, Season 11, Round 2 of Fatch GT coming up around the corner in the evening time. More to follow, though. Do take care. That's all from us here. Have a wonderful rest of your evening. Good night.